Someone caught a slime to get a magic stone. Magic stones can be exchanged for money. He threw the slime at a tied-up man, and it smacked him right in the face. The others burst out laughing. One bald man said that was a very efficient move. The two main ways adventurers make money in this world are quest rewards and trading magic stones for cash. When they defeat a monster, a magic stone appears from inside its body. The exchange rate depends on the stone. A slime's magic stone is worth about 1 copper coin. The tied man was in terrible pain. His name was Tori. This white-haired guy will be our protagonist. The bully named Kahal grabbed his hair and asked if he was ready to give up. Kahal noticed something. Tori could still move. He reminded Kahal of their deal that if he endured without throwing up, Kahal would give him all those magic stones. The protagonist is Tori, 16 years old, a rookie adventurer, a member of the guild Azure Flame Wings, and his specialty, magic, is life magic. Kahal rubbed the slime across his face, annoyed by Tori's attitude. He couldn't believe a weakling like him was the younger brother of Neil. Unlike his brother, Tori had no talent as an adventurer. That was why he had no choice but to endure. He needed the magic stones. Moments later, they had made a little money, so they decided to head back soon. They left Tori to untie the rope himself. They assumed he would figure it out with his life magic. Tori cried out for his share of the magic stones. That was not what they promised. This made them shove a slime into his mouth. It made him throw up, and Kahal said that since he vomited just like they agreed, he would get no share. Tori panicked and screamed that he needed money, but Kahal told him that if he really needed money, he should have sold off some of his self-proclaimed amazing older brother's equipment. This guy even pointed out that Tori's older brother was poisoned and was probably close to death already. His friends joked that he was cruel, but Kahal told them that if Tori wanted to resent someone, it should be his own weakness. Tori was left tied to the tree. He knew he had to get home fast, so he washed himself there, dried off, and eventually broke free. While doing chores, life magic was the only thing he ever became good at. Thanks to that, he was able to join the town's adventurer guild. But life magic was completely useless in combat. His main job was using that magic for chores during camp. It was not an easy job, but it paid better than most others. He was determined to do his best to support his family. That night, before entering his home, he tried to change his gloomy expression and happily announced that he was home. A girl and a boy were waiting for him. The girl welcomed him back, while the boy complained that he was already hungry. Tori promised to make dinner for them right away. Then he asked how their big brother was doing. The girl shared that big brother Neil had read a book for her. He was happy to hear that. Later on, the food was served. The children ate quietly, while Tori and their older brother Neil had a chat. Neil asked how Tori's quest went, and Tori answered that it was a piece of cake like always. He apologized for putting him through all this hardship. Tori once again reminded him not to apologize. He told his older brother to focus on getting better. His older brother Neil was an excellent adventurer who belonged to the adventurers guild called White Breaking Spear. After their parents died in an accident 6 years ago, his brother supported their family all by himself. But 3 years ago, he encountered a basilisk during a quest accident and was poisoned. And his treatment dragged on, while the medicine was expensive. Rent, daily food costs, equipment costs, and other expenses. Even though they lived frugally, the savings his brother earned back when he was an adventurer were almost gone. Tori thought that if only he could defeat strong monsters like his big brother, he would be able to get high-value magic stones. But the problem is, he was just too weak. Our MC's brother noticed his bothered face. Suddenly, Neil took off the necklace he was wearing. It had a magic stone on it. He gave it to Tori since it would sell for a little money. Tori was shocked since that magic stone necklace was a precious charm given to him by a senior adventurer. Neil answered that it was fine. He even apologized for not giving it to him sooner. He wanted Tori to go exchange it for money soon. Tori hesitated. Neil replied that he knew his own body well. He was aware that he could not return to being an adventurer anymore. Tori told him not to say things like that, but Neil insisted on giving it to Tori. They both looked glum. Suddenly, their little siblings entered the room. Since they had finished eating, they wanted to take turns looking after Neil. Neil thanked the two of them, Sasha and Liam. They fed their brother. The next day, Tori realized that if he did not work hard, he could not protect everyone. The quest rewards alone were not enough to earn money. That was why, on his days off, he went out hunting alone to get magic stones. But even if he ran around all day, he could not even defeat 100 slimes. He only earned just under 100 copper coins. He needed more money. In the forest, someone suddenly asked him if the Adheen River was over there. Mina, 17 years old, is an archer. She is affiliated with the Azure Flame Wings Guild, and she is the admired squad leader there. Her specialty is wind magic. Tori was happy to see her, but she was surprised that he knew her name, so she asked, He explained that he was in the same guild as her. He introduced himself as Tori, the camp liaison. As the ranged squad leader who was recently scouted, he understood why she would not know a low-ranking guy like him. Then he pointed out where the Adhin River was. He explained that there was a swamp on the way, so he suggested that she go around it. She thanked him. He was glad to have spoken to her since she was someone he admired. Then he heard someone calling out to Mina. It was Kahal. He asked what she was doing there on her day off. Then he invited her to go drinking, but she casually refused. But he grabbed her and insisted. Tori was alarmed when he saw that. He thought to himself that Kahal was way too pushy. He was conflicted since Kahal was the Azure Flamewings guildmaster, but Mina was clearly in trouble. He noticed the weakened slime near his foot. Suddenly, someone yelled to Kahal about the slime. Kahal looked up just in time to see it dropping onto his face. And Tori rushed in to slash it, but it only made the splash cover his whole face. Mina was shocked, and Tori turned pale. Kahal complained that it got all over his face. Meanwhile, our boy was sweating all over his face as he thought that he had really done it. Kahal was confused when he saw Tori. He got mad at him and asked what he was doing. He thought this was revenge for last time. Tori got nervous. He apologized and fled. Kahal chased after him. Mina watched them and commented that Tori was a strange kid. Tori did not think about what would happen next. He ran all the way to the back of the forest, but he was not sure if he had lost him. But he accidentally stepped on something, which made him fall. The fall hurt. When he looked around, there were skeletons inside the pit. He was spooked when he saw those human bones. He wondered if that was a dragon nest or something. He could not believe a place like that was hidden so deep in the forest. He doubted Kahal would follow him that far, but he had to find an exit fast. His foot bumped into something. It was a book. He picked it up, wondering if it would sell for a high price. He wondered what kind of book it was. He tried to undo the lock, but it would not open. He found it strange, but he was also curious about what was written inside. But if it would not open, there was nothing he could do. But then, the necklace given to him by his brother accidentally hit the book, and it caused a sudden burst of light. Tori was shocked and confused. What the hell is happening? The book exuded powerful energy. Black ink formed across one of its pages. Tori had no idea what it was. It formed a mustache and asked him if he could hear it. Of course, Tori was spooked that the book could talk, which made him accidentally drop the book. The book continued, saying that since he was able to open it, that meant he was a very strong adventurer. The book welcomed him and introduced itself as Beard. Tori had no idea what kind of book this was. He had never seen a talking book before. He considered it dangerous. Then the book asked if he wanted to obtain a real magic stone. Tori was confused. Just as the book expected, he did not know about it. It explained that a real magic stone was called a magic crystal. Beard told him to copy the method written in the book. It revealed that a magic crystal was worth 100 times more than a normal magic stone. This was shocking news to Tori. If that was true, it meant he could get his brother the proper treatment he needed. But it also made him question if he could really trust what the book said. He was worried that the book was some new kind of monster. Beard began with Chapter 1. He taught him how to obtain a slime's magic crystal. Tori was informed that the most important thing when obtaining a slime's magic crystal was not to try, but to kill the slime. Tori was left confused. Slimes were very sensitive to killing intent. Once they sensed even a hint of killing intent, they would become agitated. Their agitation would affect the magic stone, so in order to obtain a magic crystal, he must not let them sense his killing intent. Beard asked if he understood, but Tori had never heard a theory like that before. Beard also offered to briefly teach him about the ecology of slimes. It explained that a slime is a monster that latches onto a person's face to suffocate them, then consumes them. A single slime's attack was simple and not much of a threat. However, being attacked by several at once was extremely dangerous, so he had to use that to his advantage. He asked how. So Beard began teaching him the simple 3-step method for how to obtain a slime's magic crystal. Tori was horrified by what he read. It made him throw the book away. What was written there made no sense, since no one would do something that reckless. He was frustrated that he had been misled by some incomprehensible book. He began to question what he was even doing. At that moment, he could not help but think that this whole magic crystal thing might just be a lie. He decided to get out of the cave first, but a slime got close to his foot. It startled him. Suddenly, a huge swarm surrounded him. He tried his best to fight back. It made him shriek loudly when one attached itself to his feet. He thought that if he did not go home, no one would be there to make dinner. As he fought off the slimes rushing toward him, he worried about who would earn the money for his brother Neil's treatment. He struggled harder, thinking about who would protect his family. But the slimes kept piling onto him, dragging him down. They became so heavy that he could not move. If this kept up, he was going to be swallowed. The book was just a few inches away from him. He tried to reach for it. He grabbed the book and begged it to tell him the 3 steps again. Beard acknowledged that Tori had made up his mind. Step 1 of how to obtain the slime's magic crystal was to get eaten by a slime. Beard saw that he was already being eaten by slimes. It praised his diligence for already putting it into practice. As the slimes surrounded and consumed him, he urged it to just move on quickly. Before anything else, he was reminded not to forget the pointers that had just been taught to him. Slimes become agitated when they sense killing intent. To keep them from depleting their magic stones, he needed to let go of any killing intent. So, he had to let go of the sword first. Tori knew that if he did nothing, he would die. To get back home alive, he had to do this. He forced himself to believe in what that weird book was saying. He let go of the sword and let those slimes eat him. The slime covered his face and drowned him, but he forced himself to stay calm. Beard encouraged him that he was doing well. Plus, he was told to take a posture that would let the slimes do as they pleased. Moving on. Step 2 of how to obtain a slime's magic crystal. It was to devour the slime. Slime is a monster whose identity is based on consumption. They would never imagine that they themselves could be consumed. Tori decided to eat them. He started biting on them. Until Beard clarified that when he said devour, it was only a figure of speech. What Tori actually needed to do was deploy a storage item or something similar around his face, where the slimes were gathering. Tori was annoyed that he did not say that first. The slime had him rolling around, so Beard asked if he was okay. He was running out of oxygen. He could not breathe anymore. He thought he was going to die, but he thought of his siblings. He stopped moving. Beard commented that it was a pity. The child was also not the one he was looking for. It stated that his dream would have to wait for a future era. Suddenly, Tori took a deep breath. Beard was shocked. Tori used Starara storage. A magic circle appeared in front of his mouth and absorbed them. Beard knew that Starara storage was life magic. He was impressed. It was useless magic in a fight, but it was a clever way to use it. Tori finished most of the slimes because his family was waiting for him to come back home. That was why he could not die. He was determined to make it back home. Beard was amused that his strength was born from conviction. More slimes rushed toward him. Tori asked what the 3rd step was. He was desperate to do whatever it took to survive. Then, he was told that step 3 was to run away. Tori was dumbfounded. Beard told him that the slimes he failed to store were in a state of extreme agitation. They had become more dangerous and their magic stones had grown smaller. So, it would be best to avoid a pointless battle. Tori had no choice but to run with everything he had. Beard cheered him on. He kept going. He was glad to have escaped. He was so exhausted that he dropped to the ground. But thanks to the book, he was saved. When he looked at the book again, the beard was gone. He was so confused. Suddenly, it showed up and declared that it would teach him how to acquire the magic stones he had stored. He was spooked by its sudden appearance. If a slime is not exposed to the open air, it cannot maintain its body's water balance. Once stored, they would turn into magic stones in less than 5 minutes. The magic crystals should already be ready by then. Tori was worried that the slimes would attack him again, but he still released them from the Starara storage. Then, instead of slimes, a large magic stone appeared. With that, Beard completed its explanation of how to obtain a slime's magic crystal. Tori could not believe that he was holding a real magic stone. He could not believe that one piece was worth 100 copper coins. Just 2 of them were worth more than his monthly salary. Then he grew curious about something. What was written on the next page? To his surprise, he could not turn to the next page. He told Beard about it. Beard simply told him that it looked forward to the day they would meet again. Tori was left dumbfounded. Beard completely bid farewell. Tori screamed for it to wait since he still had so many things he wanted to ask, but the book was completely unresponsive now. The pages he had already opened could still be read just fine, but the next page would not open. He wondered what was required. He looked at the magic crystal in his hand. Thanks to the book, he managed to obtain a huge magic stone. He thought that if he sold it, he could not only buy medicine for his brother, but maybe even get clothes for Sasha and Liam as well. And he would be able to eat a full meal just once. Since it was already late, the shop was already closed. He decided to take the magic stone to exchange in the morning. He was already expecting that everyone would be shocked when they saw the stone. He decided to head home early for the day. To him, today had turned out to be a good day. He then wondered when the last time was that he had felt this happy on a day like this. A few hours later, he saw his younger siblings outside their home. He called out to them. They happily greeted him, and he asked if they had been practicing magic. Liam replied that he wanted to be able to use magic just like him. Then he was asked what he had done that day. He hesitated, unsure how to answer. And since it was a really odd experience, he wondered if he should really tell them. He simply told them that he had beaten a slime and read a book. He could not tell them that he was chased by Kahal and nearly died. Liam commented that it was rare for him to be reading. He showed them the book. The two of them looked confused. Tori pointed at it and told them to look at the book in his hand. Liam asked him if he was messing with them. He paused, noticing something strange. He wondered what was going on. He suspected that the book might only be visible to him. The thought crossed his mind that he might be the only one who could see it. Before he could think about it further, Sasha told him to watch her magic. She drew a circle in the air using a stick. Then she recited ignition and lit a bonfire. But the flame did not last long. It left her confused since it had worked just a moment ago. Tori volunteered to demonstrate. Our boy used ignition, and the bonfire was lit. Liam praised him, saying he was really good at it. He shyly apologized, saying it was only life magic. With excitement, he asked if they wanted him to show them something amazing using that life magic. Then he looked around to double-check that there were no bandits nearby. Then he prepared his hand and used his Storara storage. The item appeared in his hand. It glowed so brightly that it caught the attention of others nearby. Sasha was amused. It was really huge, so Liam asked where he found something like it. Smiling, he asked if they were surprised and what they thought it was. While they were talking, someone approached them. It was the bald bully from earlier with Kahal, along with some friends. Tori turned pale. He realized they had been hiding nearby. He noticed that Kahal was not around. The bald guy asked where he had stolen something like that. They lectured him that just because he was poor did not mean he should resort to stealing. He explained that he had found it in the forest. They immediately doubted him, saying that if a gem like that had been there, they would have found it already. They told him not to lie. Then they insisted on checking it properly and told him to show it to them. Even then, he tried to brush it off, saying it was not that big of a deal. This annoyed the bald guy, and he insisted that Tori show it at once. The man tried to grab it from him. He was disappointed that this happened since he thought today was going to be a good day. But then, his younger siblings grabbed the hem of his shirt. He noticed their trembling hands. They were scared. And seeing that expression made his heart ache even more because he wanted them to believe it was a good day too. Because of this, he decided what to do. He used his storage skill, and everyone saw the magic crystal disappear from his hand. The bullies wore annoyed expressions as they asked Tori what he had just said. Those were magic stones he obtained by going through hell. He would not give them to people like them. He tried to grab his sword, but to his surprise, it was gone. He suddenly remembered that he had thrown his dagger away when he was fighting the slimes. In that case, he knew he had to think of another way. He whispered to his siblings and informed them that they had to run for a bit. After that, our MC attacked the bonfire with the intention of extinguishing it. Everything went dark. Then he yelled for his siblings to run. The bald guy used acceleration. Tori was shocked. He was suddenly punched and thrown to the ground. All his things spilled out of his bag. The man mocked him, saying he was trying to escape by using the darkness and dismissed it as nothing more than a cheap trick. Before he could react, the man lunged forward and struck him. Liam got worried about him, but he urged him to just go. He assured him that he would be fine, so they only had to get home first. The bald guy struck him hard, sending him crashing down. The man told him that he was weak, accusing him of just putting on an act. To counter the incoming attacks, Tori used illumination. The light spread and temporarily blinded the man. Tori used the chance to get away, but the other guy made playful vines appear, and it wrapped around the legs of Tori's siblings. Naturally, Tori panicked. The man pointed out how it was nice and dark, yet he created light, which practically signaled the enemy to catch them. With resolve, Tori ran toward his siblings and declared that he would save them both. But the man controlling the vines told him to stop. He wrapped vines around Sasha. Tori screamed at him to stop it. The man told him that it all depended on what he chose to do. He threatened him, saying that if he did not hand over the jewel fast, his little sister's face would end up scratched. Tori screamed at them to stop. The man activated Water Sphere. It was supposed to rain down on Tori, but Tori used drying. Still, it did not fully block the attack, and it reached Tori, causing him to fall down. But he refused to give up. Even while lying on the ground, he countered with ignition. But the man activated rain. Dark clouds formed in the sky. Tori was horrified. The man looked confused and asked what he had just done when there was no way he could win using something like life magic. Mocking him, the red-haired bully said that even a kid could come up with something better and called him pathetic. The man who made it rain found it funny that Tori still dared to pick a fight with him when he could only use life magic. Tori was so excited when they got that magic crystal. The bald guy claimed that he would be needing money for eye treatment now, and they pointed out that they would be needing the jewel for that. They kicked him at the same time while demanding the jewel. Tori knew he could not win. His younger siblings watched him get beaten up. He endured it as he curled his body into a ball. He realized that a good day would not simply come for him. And since he got no other choice, he used release storage. And got the magic crystal out. Then he threw it on the ground, which made it roll and hit the book. The gentle bump of the crystal made the book glow brightly. Beard's voice was then heard and said that it saw that Tori was in a tight spot. Our boy didn't expect it to appear again. Then, it opened. Then Beard stated that they would proceed with Chapter 2. It would teach him combat methods using magic crystals. Tori realized that the next page had opened. Beard discussed Step 1, which was to cast a spell on the magic crystal. Beard asked him if he knew what would happen when he poured a different mana flow into compressed mana. The bald guy was about to pick up the magic crystal. He expected it to sell for a high price. Tori realized that only he could see the book or hear Beard's voice. He wondered what compressed mana was and if it was related to the crystal. Beard asked him if he should really be feeling exhausted at a time like this. Tori was asked if he wanted to change his situation, and of course he answered that he would do it. So he did Step 1, combat methods using magic crystals. He unleashed ignition and fired it towards the bald guy holding the crystal. But in truth, it was actually a spell for the magic crystal. The flame and the crystal collided. The bald man holding the magic crystal was confused. He asked what Tori had been doing. Beard explained that when he poured different magic into its compressed mana, a few seconds later, the magic crystal glowed brightly, and the flame grew bigger. It swirled around the man. Beard revealed that the magic power was amplified and released. Everyone was shocked, including our MC. This is the first time he had seen this method. The man was burned, and he dropped the magic crystal. The other bullies were rattled. They asked what he had done. Tori was left stunned, until Beard explained to him that despite his own tiny magic power, he could use the vast amount of magic compressed inside a magic crystal. He was told to remember that. Magic stones were not just stones he got from monsters. A magic stone is a stone that possesses magic. The man screamed loudly as the fire continued to burn. Tori could not help but be impressed. Beard told him that was not even a half of it. He was then told that there were 2 more steps to go. The bald man's friends tried to put out the fire. They asked him if he was okay, but most of his face was burned. It was brutal. They cursed Tori. They had no idea what he had just done. Struggling to get back up, he forced himself to move despite the pain. Gritting his teeth, he told himself that he had to hurry and save Sasha and Liam. But Beard told him to wait and began explaining Step 2 on how to fight using magic crystals. He needed to get the enemy to touch the magic crystal. Of course, our boy was completely confused. Then Beard explained that Tori's magic was now embedded inside the magic crystal. In other words, he was the owner of that magic crystal. It repeated that he was the owner of the magic crystal, and that was the reason he needed to make them touch it. At that moment, the enemy, frustrated, decided that if things had come to this, he would at least take the jewel. Beard informed him that anyone who was not the owner of the magic crystal would be treated as an enemy. The moment the enemy touched it, he was burned as well, making the man scream loudly. Beard simplified it by saying that anyone who was not the owner was considered an enemy, and the magic he cast on it earlier reignited as a defense mechanism. He could not believe the power of a magic crystal. He learned that a magic crystal recognizes whoever bathes it in their magic as its owner. However, if someone else hits the magic crystal with stronger magic, the ownership would be overwritten. That meant if Tori's opponent used stronger magic than he did, the ownership of the crystal would transfer to them. So Beard told him that his next priority should not be the safety of the hostages, but retrieving the magic crystal. Naturally, Tori would not agree with that. He could not let his siblings stay terrified any longer. Tori thought of what Neil would do. Meanwhile, the last enemy still standing wondered what kind of jewel it was. He guessed that it might be enchanted with some kind of magic that activates on touch. Despite the uncertainty, he wanted to do something. He was willing to risk it all. He decided to destroy the stone. Beard realized that the situation was bad. At this rate, the ownership of the magic crystal would be transferred to the enemy. And if that happened, everything would be over. It noticed that Tori still did not know how to fight properly. It told him that he needed to instill a sense of defeat in his opponent, or the nightmare would continue. What he truly needed was composure, the ability to calmly assess the situation. Moments later, Tori picked up the magic crystal. The last enemy looked terrified. Beard went quiet. Tori's gaze was intimidating. Beard was surprised that he was not going to save those 2 children first. Tori replied that he thought about what Neil would do. His brother was always calm. In his memory, his brother would stare down his opponent and never lower his axe until the enemy was gone. And besides, Beard had saved his life, so he trusted it. He decided not to hesitate anymore. Beard was pleased. He praised Tori by saying, "That's the spirit." After that, they proceeded with Step 3. The man was annoyed that it felt like Tori was looking down on him. He wondered why Tori was the only one who could touch the jewel. He refused to let Tori win just like that. He targeted those 2 children instead. He wrapped them with vines. The situation was bad. Beard told him to do step 3, to imagine the monster that dropped the magic crystal. Tori was dumbfounded, because that monster was a slime. But as soon as he thought about it, the magic crystal transformed into a slime. Beard saw that he had potential. A magic crystal allows someone to use the magic of the monster that dropped it. Realizing that, he understood that it meant he could use that power himself. The enemy released more vines. While Tori used slime magic, he rained down slimes on the man. Sasha and Liam were shocked and impressed by Tori's magic. Tori was impressed too. The technique came to him just as he had imagined it would. The man asked what kind of magic that was, and what the hell Tori even was. Tori saw the trembling enemy, and it made him wonder if the man had always been like that. The man created more vines. Tori could not believe he had been afraid of a guy like this. The man was furious. He wondered if he was allowed to stop being scared now. Beard told him that it was finally time for the finale. It asked Tori if he now understood the proper way to use a magic crystal. Basically, he had to own the magic crystal and imagine. If he got his hands on a dragon's magic crystal, he could even master dragon magic. That was the true power of the magic stone. Beard asked if he thought it was exciting too. He replied yes. Now he was also ready to deliver payback for what happened earlier. The man screamed at him to stop, but our boy had already created a huge, powerful orb. Then, it rained down on his senior, even choking the man. Then ice pierced his body. All of Tori's enemies were now unconscious. He could not believe he did it. Through the use of the power of the magic stone and the book, he won. Sasha rushed over to hug him. Tori immediately checked if she was all right and not hurt anywhere. Sasha exclaimed that he was amazing. Tori was surprised. She told him he was so strong and so cool, and that made him smile. Also, it proved that he had truly won. He apologized for scratching her face, but she answered that she was fine. Liam approached him. He saw the magic Tori used and knew that it was not life magic. Tori did not know how to answer. He made up something about meeting an old man in the cave, and that he taught him. Liam wondered who it could be. Tori insisted that it was just a lucky coincidence. Tori decided to keep everything a secret for now. He did not want to drag the 2 of them into anything weird. What mattered to him was that they all got home safely together. He made an announcement that whoever got home last had to do the dishes. Sasha followed behind him, but then he remembered something. He told them not to tell Neil about what happened. He persuaded them by saying that their big brother told them not to fight, and to keep him from worrying, it would stay a secret between the 3 of them. Moments later, they arrived home. And as soon as they arrived, Sasha announced that Tori used an amazing magic trick. He covered her mouth and told Neil that it was nothing. Then he stopped. When Tori got a better look at Neil, he was shocked. He did not expect him to be awake when he should have been sleeping. Neil replied that they were late, so he thought he would check on them. Tori apologized and told him that a lot had happened. Neil noticed that he came back pretty injured, so he asked if gathering magic stones was tough. He answered that it was tough. Neil felt guilty, saying he was always the one making Tori carry the burden. He thought that he should do something too, whenever he could at least move a little. Seeing him like that, Tori quickly reassured him, insisting that he was fine and that Neil just needed to rest. Then, in a hurry, he called out for Liam and Sasha, asking them to help carry him. Time quietly passed. The 3 siblings were deep asleep, except for Tori. He double-checked if they were truly asleep. Just as he thought, he could not tell Neil, knowing it would only make him worry more. That day had been full of unexpected events. He did not expect a magic stone to hold that kind of power. He took out his magic book. He wondered what the true nature of this book really was. He tried hard, but none of the other pages would turn. Then he noticed his necklace. He remembered that the first time the page opened was when the magic stone necklace touched it. Suddenly, Beard spoke, and that surprised him. Fortunately, none of his siblings woke up from the noise. He was annoyed at Beard for scaring him like that, but Beard told him it just had a little supplement to add. Someone woke up and asked him if something was wrong. He replied that he just had to go to the toilet. Outside, he complained, telling it not to suddenly show up like that because he could not explain it to anyone. Beard told him that to begin with, no one else could see or hear it. Frustrated, he argued that he had his own circumstances to deal with too. Beard dismissed it, saying that if that was the case, he should handle things himself and not rely on it only when it was convenient. He could only click his tongue in response. Beard then addressed him seriously, telling him that as an adventurer, he would likely acquire many magic crystal stones in the future. Because of that, what he needed most was funds. Without money, it told him, he would not be able to continue as an adventurer. It clarified that he should exchange those magic stones for money. Thinking about it, he agreed, saying that was what he originally intended. But now, he also wanted to be able to use slime magic. Beard told him that he should now be able to obtain magic crystals like that anytime. It pointed out that he had already grown stronger than before. He was asked if he thought of it that way too. He could not answer. Beard abruptly told him goodnight. Caught off guard, he tried to stop it, saying he still had things he wanted to ask. As it went silent, he could not help but think it was a selfish guy. Looking up at the night sky, he wondered why it was telling him so much. Even so, he understood that money was necessary. With that in mind, he decided that tomorrow he would bring the magic stones to the exchange. The next day, he was in disguise. He gathered the old helmet from home. He also used the cotton beard he had made. Even the old sheet he was planning to throw away became part of it. With all of that, he believed no one would be able to recognize him. He went to the exchange store. His appearance caught the attention of the people there. Some guessed that he might be there to sell off his stash of magic stones before retirement. Thinking about it, if a mere camp helper showed up with a magic stone, people would start getting suspicious. The people in the store mocked him, asking what he was doing there and if he was trying to get some nursing home money. Laughing, they assumed all he had were moldy old stones. Without saying a word, he slammed the magic stone down in front of them. Their jaws dropped. He calmly asked them which one was moldy, the stone or their eyes. Caught off guard, the staff panicked and quickly called for the manager. Seeing the stone, they were shocked, wondering what it was and if the old man could actually be a famous adventurer. Some even admitted they had never seen such a huge magic stone before. He realized that in this world, if someone was being looked down on, the store would not buy what that person was selling. Bluffing his way through, he remembered that this was the technique at the exchange, just like Neil had used before. After that, he finished his business and immediately set out. He turned into an alleyway, sat for a bit, and took out his gold coin. He inspected it carefully. He could not contain his emotions upon seeing it in his hand. He was so happy about getting one gold coin. It was his first time ever holding one. Just like Beard said, it was worth 100 times a slime's magic stone. At this point, he had taken off his disguise and thought that with this, he could already cover Neil's treatment fee, and even their rent for the month could be paid. Excited, he also thought about buying shoes and clothes for Liam and Sasha. Filled with joy, he declared that tonight they would feast. Until someone grabbed his hand. It was Cahal. Cahal asked why he had a gold coin. Tori was shocked. Then he felt rage. Tori was angry since he had finally gotten his hands on a gold coin, and he was found by those guys in an alleyway. But to his surprise, the gold coin was gone. Even Cahal was dumbfounded. They saw the culprit running away. This person had the gold coin between his fingers and told them that their story was like two dogs fighting over a bone while a third ran away with it. Then this person jumped side to side across the buildings to reach the roof. He landed safely and bid goodbye to Mr. Careless. Tori and Cahal were stunned, and they both yelled at the person to give back their gold coin. Tori could not believe that the man had gotten away. He wondered what that guy was all about. Even though he had finally earned one, he could not help but think that in the end he was still broke. He took out his magic book and asked why it did not help him. But the magic book stayed silent. He kept asking why not. He had told his siblings they would have a feast before he left home, and now they would be disappointed. He announced that he was home. When he opened the door, he could hear his siblings calling out for Neil and telling him to hang in there. He panicked. He rushed toward the room and asked what had happened. Neil was not looking good. He was in excruciating pain. Without wasting time, he told Sasha and Liam that he was going to get the doctor. He instructed them to look after their brother while he was gone. They quickly agreed as he rushed out. Neil had been afflicted with basilisk poison for a long time now. Although he had been stable recently, the poison was eating away at his body. He hoped Neil would hang on a little longer and not leave them yet. At the clinic, he barged in, calling for the doctor in desperation. The doctor was telling someone that he was out of medicine. The person in the white robe asked if there were any materials needed so he could go and get them. The doctor hesitated, unsure how to respond. Then the person in the white robe and Tori's eyes met. Tori recognized him and shouted, calling him the thief from before. He saw the gold coin on the counter and immediately grabbed it. He demanded that he return the gold coin, claiming it was his. But the person in the white robe grabbed it first. Then he denied it, saying he did not know what Tori was talking about. This made Tori furious. Before things escalated further, the doctor told him to calm down and asked what the matter was. Tori suddenly remembered his purpose. He told him that Neil was in a lot of pain and that it was really bad. Hearing that, the doctor admitted that the situation was not good. But before he could say anything else, Tori pleaded with him, promising that he would definitely pay later and asking him to just give him the medicine for now. The doctor explained that it was not a matter of money. He revealed that they had run out of the Dryad's lost seed, a necessary ingredient for the poison cure. Tori was left speechless. The doctor explained that the supply from outside the city had been cut off recently. He was just explaining to the person in the white robe that he could not make the medicine either. Tori was worried because, at this rate, they would not make it in time. The doctor offered to examine Neil. The person in the white robe immediately said he would go and get the ingredient, saying his little brother's life was on the line. Tori was shocked. The doctor stopped him, apologizing and saying he could not let him go alone. He explained that he had already sent a request to the guild, and they needed at least 10 adventurers for it. Hearing about the quest, Tori realized something. He urgently asked the doctor if he knew where they could find the ingredient. The doctor told him it could be found at the base of the Great Mother Tree in Guruma Forest. However, he warned that it was a dangerous place where monsters often appeared. Without hesitation, Tori declared that he would go. The person in the white robe was surprised. The doctor was shocked that Tori said that. He refused, saying there was no way he could take responsibility for that. But Tori insisted, telling him it would be fine and that he would come back alive. Still, the doctor could not believe him. The man in the white robe repeated that he had already decided to go. This caught Tori's attention. He explained that he also needed the same ingredient right away, and he had been to Guruma Forest a few times before. He introduced himself as Clegg. Tori hesitated for a moment before introducing himself. Then he said that he would take the gold coin back once everything was settled. Then he asked the doctor if they could go since there were 2 of them already. The doctor told them it was not okay, but he knew Tori would still go. The doctor eventually agreed. He added that he would watch over Neil's condition and report to the guild. He warned them not to do anything reckless. Tori thanked him, and they left. The doctor told them to be careful. He also warned them about a rumor that the monsters in that forest eat adventurers. In the forest. They were already pretty deep inside. Clegg told him that the Great Mother Tree was in the deepest part of the forest. He asked if Tori was already tired. Tori replied that he was not tired at all. Clegg warned him that he had no obligation to cooperate, and if Tori could not keep up, he would be left behind. Tori saw that he moved fast. Then he remembered what Clegg said earlier about his little brother's life being on the line. It made him wonder if Clegg's family might be sick too. In that sense, he felt their situations might be similar. Before he could think further, the man suddenly said they had arrived. They stopped in front of a huge tree. Tori was impressed since he had never seen a tree that big before. Clegg pointed at something. It was the Dryad's lost seed on the ground. Tori was so happy that they found it faster than expected. With urgency, he suggested they hurry back and have the medicine made. But Clegg told him to wait. It made him stop running and ask what the matter was. Clegg reminded him that he had been warned. But Tori could not understand what he was talking about. Suddenly, a plant with wide mouths emerged and knocked him off his feet. Tori wondered what it was. He was falling right into its mouth, and it swallowed him. He could not believe that he had just been eaten. The plant was called Eater's Planda. It was a monster that devours humans and continues to grow without end. Clegg knew it would not let them easily take the Dryad's lost seed. Eater's Planda digests things instantly. Once a person was swallowed, survival was almost impossible. And just like that, Tori was eaten in an instant. He realized he was in serious trouble. The plant secreted liquid onto Tori, and it melted his shoes. He realized how bad the situation was. He had to get out of there immediately. His hand slipped, and he fell. He landed in a pool of that liquid. He could not believe it. It made him think that he was just going to melt away, until he felt something hit his shoe. He was surprised by what he saw. It was a magic crystal. He wondered why there was a magic crystal there. He thought that if he summoned Beard, maybe it could do something about the situation. But when he took it out, it slipped from his hand. He swam toward it. Fortunately, it fell right onto the crystal. It glowed brightly, making the liquid fade away, making him fall to another layer inside the plant. He groaned as he pulled himself up, realizing the mucus was suddenly gone. Beard spoke, telling him that it had been a close call. Luckily, a magic crystal had just happened to be there. He was happy to hear from Beard. Beard explained that they were inside Eater's Planda, and the magic crystal was from the rock birds that had been eaten by it. Tori finally understood the situation. Beard admitted that it would answer when called out that way. It was designed to respond to strong bursts of mana. If he waved a magic crystal and called out, it would answer. Frustrated, he complained that it should have been explained sooner. Beard casually apologized. Looking around, he realized the situation was as bad as ever. It sarcastically stated that it was such a warm welcome. Then, without wasting time, the book told him to begin. It introduced Chapter 3, How to Obtain Eater's Planda's Magic Crystal. Meanwhile, Clegg avoided being eaten by it. He expected it to slow down during digestion, but that was not happening. He thought that the creature might have digested the guy too quickly. Even so, he realized that everything had happened far too fast. At the same time, the man understood that without the Dryad's lost seed, the boy could not be saved. With resolve, he declared that he would turn both Tori and Eater's Planda to ash. He jumped onto a tree branch and settled there as he opened his cape. There were many vials strapped across his body. He knew that plant-type monsters were weak to fire. He opened one vial. It was Flamehawk magic powder. Then he opened the vial for slime magic powder and bomb turtle magic powder. He mixed everything and threw it onto Eater's Planda. It was an explosive mix. The plant burned. It could not extinguish the fire and rolled across the ground. He noticed them circling beneath him. He used rabbit magic powder and rockbird magic powder. The fire died out, and it attacked him. He noticed how it was rubbing itself against the ground. He wondered if it had intentionally put out the fire on purpose. He grabbed 2 more vials and opened them. He realized that this creature had real intelligence, meaning it was a highly evolved specimen. He mixed the vials, and it released a beam toward Eater's Planda. Then he was engulfed by a slime as he used Soaring Leap. It tried to eat him while he was mid-air. Fortunately, he was able to avoid them at the last second. Then he noticed something. The creature did not have teeth yet. Its stalk could not detach from the roots. Even though it was growing, its biology was the same as the normal type. He landed with his back to it, and it wrapped around his torso and slammed him into the ground. It made him spit blood. He worried that he was going to get eaten. Unexpectedly, they moved erratically. He could not believe that it started convulsing. He took his Purple Panther magic powder and Wolf Helm magic powder and threw them. Allowing him to use Axel Mix, Eater's Planda chased after him, but he moved fast and intentionally tangled them together. It was intelligent, but it was still at a child's level. He planned to destroy its nerves from the outside. He then prepared multiple types of magic powder, poison feed, fly moth, and acid bee. He mixed them all together, creating the technique Dissolve Mix. But the creature's body was still intact. He clicked his tongue, realizing the creature was tougher than expected. Even so, he managed to slow it down. Suddenly, someone thanked him for holding it in place. It was just as he thought. The body of the creature was being attacked from the inside, and it burst open. A cocoon dropped onto the ground. Clegg was dumbfounded when he saw it. It started to crack, and Tori emerged. Tori exclaimed how close that had been. He almost got digested for real. He muttered that getting eaten by a monster once was more than enough. Then he felt Clegg's gaze on him. He did not expect to see him there. Clegg noticed the magic crystal that he was holding, and stated that it was an Eater's Planda magic crystal. Then he questioned him, asking what exactly he had done inside its stomach. Tori was unsure how to respond, but he knew that if he did not answer properly, it might be forced out of him. Memories of being bullied surfaced, reminding him of how things used to go. Feeling the pressure, he struggled to find the right words. He quickly brushed it off, saying they needed to take the Dryad's lost seed with them. He reminded Clegg that he was going to save his brother, urging him to hurry. He grabbed the seed. He was hopeful that with it, his big brother Neil would be saved. At home, Neil was given medicine. The doctor then said they would watch the situation for now. He explained that it now depended on Neil's stamina, but he should be fine. Hearing that, Tori felt relieved. After that, he handed Clegg a small pouch. He said it was medicine for his brother. It was all he could prepare for now, and he could come back for the rest later. Clegg simply looked at him. He avoided his gaze. He told him not to charge him for the clothes he borrowed, and that the quest reward should be split in half. Then he remembered one more thing. Clegg asked what exactly he had done inside Eater's Planda. Tori already expected that he was going to ask that. Back then, Beard informed him about Chapter 3, which was a discussion on how to obtain an Eater's Planda magic crystal. The first step was to get eaten. Tori had an expression that screamed, "Are you kidding me?" He told Beard that he really wanted to survive. Beard responded that it would help him. It pointed out that the first step had already been achieved. Amused, it added that he had a good sense for these things. He was told that from that point on, it would be a quick battle. If they took too long, they would melt and die. Beard asked if he was ready. With resolve, Tori declared that he was there to save his brother, so he would not die there no matter what. Beard bluntly asked if he wanted to die. He blushed and immediately denied it. Ignoring his reaction, Beard moved on to the next step. Step 2 was to scatter a large amount of ash. Tori was confused about using ash. Looking around, he realized the surroundings were already filled with flammable bones and wondered if they would burn. Beard urged him to hurry, warning that he would die if he did not act fast. Tori had doubts, though. But then acid was coming out again, and wood fell. He was confused that a tree had fallen, and more things dropped. He realized that a fight was going on outside, too. He figured that if they burned the pieces of wood around them, they could create ash. Now, he was sure that they could do it. He used ignition. He spread the fire everywhere, but Beard told him that the ash still was not enough. Then Tori noticed that his clothes were melting. He thought of something. He removed all his clothing and used ignition on it. Beard approved by saying that burning the clothes was a good decision. They moved on to step 3, which was to create wind. Tori got serious. He activated desiccation to create it, and Beard was left speechless. Then it asked if that was supposed to be wind magic. Beard told him that everyday magic did not have enough force to create wind. He argued that he could not use wind magic. Beard remembered that there was a rockbird magic crystal nearby. It asked Tori if he had ever seen a rockbird before. The magic crystal could use flap magic. He remembered the moment when slime magic first appeared. Realizing the pattern, he thought that if he used this magic crystal, something similar might happen. With that in mind, he reached out and grabbed the rockbird magic crystal. Then he activated flap magic. A strong wind circled around him. He was told that he was getting the hang of using magic crystals. He shouted that he had already scattered the ash and asked what to do next. Beard calmly replied that it was done. Tori was confused. Beard informed him that the area was maintained as acidic because of the stomach acid. By scattering large amounts of ash, the environment inside would be neutralized. As a result, the internal balance would completely flip. Meanwhile, outside, Clegg fell. Beard felt a bit of sympathy, thinking about how painful that must be. Once the creature reached a near-death state, somewhere inside its stomach, Eater's Planda's magic crystal would appear. It slowly came out of the stomach wall. Tori was so happy. He was told that once the magic crystal was taken, Eater's Planda would eventually wither. He was then urged to get out immediately while he still could. Beard warned him that the stomach acid would keep coming, so he needed to put some clothes on quickly. Tori was surprised because he had already burned his clothes. The stomach acid came pouring down. It pointed out that Eater's Planda was going wild. At that rate, it warned that escaping would be difficult. Of course, Tori refused to die there. He had to protect himself from the stomach acid, but only bones were left. But Beard warned him that even bones would melt at that rate. Frustrated and scared, he shouted back, telling it to stop saying terrifying things like that. Then he realized that the bones would melt, but the stomach itself had not melted. He grabbed it, thinking that it was now or never. He bit it and pulled it apart. He wrapped it around his body and climbed upward to escape. He did so while holding the magic crystal. He admitted to himself that it was reckless. But they did not have time to wait for it to wither. If he did, his brother's condition would only get worse. Meanwhile, outside, dissolution medicine was used. Beard noticed that the movement of Eater's Planda had slowed down due to some kind of external pressure. Then he heard Clegg say that he could only stop it from moving. Then he answered to stop it with a knife. That was what happened. He really did not know how to explain Beard, and he was not good at lying. Clegg knew that if it were not for Tori, he would not have been saved. Tori simply smiled and thanked him. Clegg did not respond at once. He just turned his back on him. Tori was confused, but he wondered if he had successfully avoided the question. Then Clegg stopped walking. He looked at the pouch in his hand and admitted to himself that he could not have done it alone. He held onto the pouch and remembered that the guy's name was Tori. He told himself that he would not thank him. That night, Cahal and his squad were shocked. They came for the subjugation quest, but Eater's Planda had an empty stomach, meaning the subjugation was already done. He asked Mina what they should do. He suggested they go back and go on a date. Mina checked the corpse. It was completely withered, which meant that the magic crystal had already been collected. Then she noticed something. It was a note that the pants were owned by Tori. She remembered that name, and that the guy was from their guild. She wondered if that kid had subjugated Eater's Planda. Late at night, Tori unlocked his storage and took out the 2 magic crystals. He did it on purpose, so he could admire those 2 magic crystals. He was happy to have 2 magic crystals at once. One came from Eater's Planda, and the other was from the rockbird. He recalled that he had fought a rockbird once at the guild, but he could not even scratch it. He wondered how much they would be worth. But then, there was one problem. How could he exchange them without getting caught? The last time, Cahal and the others noticed right away. He wished they did home appraisals, but then his brother would question where the crystals came from. He glanced at his sleeping brother. He wondered if Neil would even believe him if he told him about Beard, and that he could now use powerful magic too. He might finally be able to get him proper treatment. He also felt relieved that he would not have to worry about Sasha or Liam as much. In the end, he decided that he could handle everything on his own. Suddenly, someone knocked on his door. He wondered who would visit at that hour. He opened the door and asked who was there. He was surprised to see Clegg. He asked what he wanted for him to show up in the middle of the night. Clegg threw the gold coin at him, and he almost failed to catch it. He was confused when he saw that it was the same gold coin. It was the one Clegg had been holding. His brother told him to return it. Tori answered that Clegg's brother was a good kid, unlike him. Clegg scoffed and pointed out that he already returned it. He was about to leave. But Tori called out for him to wait, saying he would also return the clothes he borrowed. He invited him to sit down at least and said he would serve him some tea. He added that his brother was sleeping in the back and told him to keep quiet. Clegg saw Neil from a distance. He recognized him as the hero of the white-breaking spear, Neil. Tori asked if his brother had recovered. He answered that the medicine worked and that his brother was doing fine. Tori felt relieved and said it was good to hear. He added that Neil's condition had stabilized as well. Even so, he mentioned that Neil still needed rest, though he could at least get up and move around now. Clegg simply replied, "I see." But he saw the sunken eyes, muscle loss, hair falling from the side effects, and those damaged lungs wheezing with every breath. It made him sad. He muttered that it really was basilisk poison. Tori was surprised he could tell. Clegg explained that he was a healer and knew a fair bit about poisons. He admitted that poison from a monster was truly terrifying. Tori answered that the medicine was helping little by little, but a full cure was not possible. Clegg muttered that if they had a basilisk magic crystal, things might be different. Tori was shocked to hear that. He asked him what he said, but Clegg told him to forget it, because it was not as simple as it sounded. Basilisks were calamity-class monsters. Even so, Tori thought to himself that if there was a chance for a cure by obtaining a basilisk magic crystal, he wanted to ask more about it, but Clegg was already gone. He complained that Clegg was as slippery as ever. Still, he held on to the chance to finally cure his big brother. So, he wondered if the book could make it possible. Tori sat and read. He'd been able to unlock more pages from it. He learned that combining crystals could unlock new ones. Then, one page caught his interest. There was a list of different types of magic crystals, like the slime magic crystal, Eater's Planda magic crystal, and the rockbird magic crystal. He wondered if the book was some kind of encyclopedia. It contained all the crystals he'd collected so far. One entry described the slime magic crystal, a clear blue crystal that generates slime magic. It also noted its value, estimated at around 38,000 to 52,000 G. There was also the Eater's Planda magic crystal, with C-rank rarity. It was a beautiful indigo crystal that generated vine magic. Its value was around 220 to 280,000 gold. He read the next entry about the rockbird magic crystal. It described it as a rugged amber crystal that generated wing beat magic. Its value was much higher, around 90 to 110,000 G. Out of nowhere, Beard commented that Tori had finally noticed something. Of course, its sudden appearance startled Tori. He told it not to suddenly appear like that. Beard told him that those records in the encyclopedia were pretty handy. Tori admitted he'd never seen those pages before. He only read what was available. Beard replied that once he inscribed them, knowledge was added automatically. It had unlocked part of its knowledge for him. Tori was confused why it would do that. Beard continued, explaining that there were 100 types of magic crystals in the world. It wanted him to collect all of them. Shocked, he asked why it had to be him. It answered that it was because it trusted his ability. It asked him if he wanted to cure his brother's illness. Hearing that, he froze. Then it explained that it contained all the knowledge about magic crystals, but it also admitted that it was just a book. It could not hunt monsters on its own, and meeting him gave it an idea. It proposed a deal. He would gather the magic crystals. In return, it would share its knowledge with him. It pointed out that their interests aligned perfectly. He felt uneasy, saying it sounded like making a deal with the devil. He's also well aware that there were plenty of stronger adventurers out there. Beard laughed and said he didn't understand his own true value. Confused, he repeated the word, questioning what it meant. Beard was about to reveal something, when they were interrupted by a loud noise. Beard found the aura familiar. Tori was shocked. He rushed to check it. There was a monster wreaking havoc in the city. He could not believe the city was being destroyed, and that monster looked familiar to him. It was the basilisk, the one that left Neil in that condition. Basically, Tori's sworn enemy. He brought up what Beard mentioned, that their interests aligned. Beard confirmed that. That made him determined to take the magic crystal while Beard lent him its strength. Beard stayed silent, and eventually, it agreed. So, their Chapter 4 discussion was how to obtain the basilisk's magic crystal. People ran in panic as a massive basilisk appeared. They shouted for everyone to run, warning that they would be crushed. Amid the chaos, a child cried out, calling for his mother. Terrified and alone, he desperately looked around, shouting for her. But then, a building was about to fall on them. Fortunately, a man with a huge hammer arrived. He caught the child while smashing apart the falling section of the building. He told the child that everything was all right. The mother spotted the child. She was relieved to finally find him. The child ran to her, The mother thanked the man for saving them. He told them to run carefully and head to higher ground since the rescue team would be there. They agreed and quickly left. The child asked the mother about the man, and she answered that he was the strongest adventurer in town. He was introduced as the guild master of White Breaking Spear. His name was Angus, also known as Black Iron's rabid dog. He was a 37-year-old adventurer. He specialized in striking magic and stood as one of the strongest figures in the guild. He noticed a line of ants near his feet. He apologized for almost stepping on them. He thought they were evacuating too. With confidence, he told them not to worry and to leave everything to him. He declared that he would restore peace to the town in no time. He dragged his hammer to draw a line. It was the mark of the place he needed to protect. And then the basilisk noticed him. Angus didn't waste his time and immediately used Black Iron's thorn. A pentagon-shaped barrier formed in front of the basilisk. He swung his hammer. Dark energy surged from the pentagon and burned its body. He told the basilisk that from that point onward, entry was forbidden. The basilisk hissed at him. He had no idea why the monster known as the Mad Poison Basilisk had suddenly appeared in town. But what he did know was that it was Neil's enemy. Without hesitation, he launched an attack. He was determined to take its head right there and then. After his attack, he commanded his reinforcements. The archers prepared to strike. They simultaneously unleashed piercing arrows. The arrows they fired were not getting through at all. They reported to Angus that the scales were too hard. Some of them even thought it was impossible. But Angus shouted at them not to get discouraged and said the rest of the team would arrive soon. He told them to keep firing. Even if 100 arrows were shot and only one landed, it still dealt damage. And if they shot 1,000, that meant 100 times the damage. He charged forward and struck the basilisk head-on, declaring that they would not lose in a contest of strength. He added that their guild was all about hitting things until they broke. Cahal arrived and commented that their leader was a muscle brain as usual. Suddenly, someone used the skill weight. The basilisk was forced to the ground. Angus was surprised to see gravity magic. Then Mina came in and used Arrow of the Storm, and it damaged the basilisk. Angus saw that the star players of Azure Flamewings had arrived and praised them, saying they did a good job. Calling them by name, he acknowledged Cahal and Mina. Cahal joked that it was called a star's entrance. At the same time, Clegg used bombing medicine on the basilisk. Angus acknowledged his arrival. Clegg apologized for being late and asked about the situation. Angus replied confidently, saying he had not let it cross the line yet. Clegg just scoffed. Meanwhile, Cahal wanted to say Mina did a good job, but it looked like her attack was not very effective. The townspeople cheered as they saw White Breaking Spear and Azure Flamewings arrive. The arrival of the town's two major guilds made them believe everything would be fine now. Hope spread through the crowd as they placed their trust in the adventurers. From a distance, people shouted their support, calling out to Mina and the others to hang in there. Cahal was unhappy when he noticed no one was cheering his name. One of his members told him that he was the heel of the town, but he found that unacceptable since he was the guildmaster of Azure Flame Wings. He decided he needed to redeem himself. With a grin, he shouted for everyone to move and charged forward. Seeing him rush in, Angus called out to his guild members and told them not to let Azure Flame Wings get ahead of them. Meanwhile, Tori was rushing, because the guilds had already started moving. Realizing this, he told himself he had to hurry too. As he ran, the doctor spotted him and urgently asked for his help. He was about to refuse, but he saw someone trapped under the rubble. The doctor said that just clearing the rubble was enough. If the person stayed there, they would be poisoned by the basilisk. Hearing that, he immediately thought of his brother. Tori was horrified, so he moved to help, and they were able to pull out the woman. The doctor carried her on his back. Tori asked if the person could be saved. The doctor explained that they could suppress the poison, but there was no medicine in town that could cure it. Hearing that, he froze. Then, the doctor added that this was not the only person who had been poisoned. When they reached the camp, he was shocked to see so many victims. He realized that it was not just his big brother. The town was being poisoned by the basilisk's venom as if it had been cursed. With that, Beard asked him if he was ready. Our boy then clenched his fist and replied, yes. Now he was far more determined to defeat the basilisk and get the magic crystal. Back to this hammer guy. Angus led everyone in the charge. It was time for them to play with this basilisk. He unleashed black iron thorns while Cahal used gravity. Mina activated wind-slicing arrow and Clegg prepared explosive mix. They released their attacks at the same time. But Clegg found it strange. One of the archers even pointed it out to Mina. It was strange that none of their attacks were doing anything. She expected the scales to be hard, but this was ridiculous. Mina agreed. She even noticed that her magic consumption had been insane the whole time. She wondered if Angus had been the one suppressing something earlier. Angus also felt that something was different compared to the last time he fought it alongside Neil. But before that, He could not understand the feeling of his magic being drained, but he did not care. He attacked again. The basilisk was struck by a burst of dark energy, sending violent red and black streaks crashing forward. But Angus was left shocked. A magic circle appeared. They realized that not a single one of their attacks was getting through. Sensing danger, Angus immediately shouted for all units to scatter, warning that a counterattack was coming. The basilisk inhaled deeply and rained down venom on them. Cahal panicked. Everyone was almost hit. One of the archers was about to be engulfed by it, but Mina saw her, so she pushed her away and got hit on the shoulder instead. Her female archer friend and Cahal were worried for her. Her arm was burned by the venom. Immediately, her complexion turned pale. The others suffered the same fate. Some were even hit in the face. Angus realized that everyone was being overwhelmed by the basilisk's poison. To him, it felt just like that time when Neil's power was taken away. He lamented that event, because back then, he was the one who was supposed to protect his comrades. He blamed himself for erasing Neil's future. Neil was the hope that led everyone. He was lost in thought until Clegg yelled at him to dodge. The venom was about to rain down on him. He noticed the cat standing on his drawn line. He called it an idiot for being outside the line. Suddenly, someone used vine magic, and the vines formed a barrier that shielded Angus from the venom. Angus was shocked. Vine magic was used once more, and the vines wrapped around the basilisk. It sprayed venom again. Then this person used storage release, and used wingbeat magic to disperse the poison. Cahal was caught off guard and asked what kind of magic that was. They could not believe that the poison had been blown away by wind. Clegg saw who it was. The person's back was turned toward them. Angus thought it was Neil. This shocked the female archer, but Mina told her that was wrong. Angus looked carefully, and they realized it was none other than Tori. Beard then spoke and revealed the next step, how to obtain a basilisk magic crystal. Step 1 was to restrain its body, which was already done. Tori said he would not let the poison claim any more victims. With a determined and pissed look on his face, our boy declared, "I'll be the one to get the magic stone crystal." Beard agreed with him. At the same time, Cahal questioned who had called Tori. He added that it did not seem like normal life magic. Then he asked who had just called him Tori. One of the guild members pointed out that he had already told him Tori started using strange magic recently. Mina was surprised to see him. Even Clegg was caught off guard. Angus kept watching him. He could not believe that it was Neil's little brother. Seeing him now, he could not help but think about how much he had grown. Clegg asked why Tori was there. Tori questioned why Clegg was the one fighting a basilisk and what he was even doing there. Clegg reminded him that he was an adventurer too, and a member of White Breaking Spear. Tori was surprised and asked if it was the same guild as his brothers. Clegg confirmed it, adding that he joined after Neil did. Suddenly, Angus rubbed Tori's head. Angus asked if Tori was acquainted with their ace. Tori recognized Angus. Angus knew that the bird magic was Tori's technique, and Tori confirmed it. Angus thanked him and told him it was a good technique. He then instructed Clegg to go help the ones who were poisoned. He also told him to take the dog with him because he could not protect him if he stayed outside the line. Clegg was confused about the dog. Then he noticed it, a small dog nearby, reacting nervously. Tori noticed how, even in the middle of battle, Angus was thinking about people more than just the fight. He was amazed by the town's strongest adventurer. But this was interrupted when the basilisk made a loud noise. They all became alert. Angus rushed forward while telling Tori that he was counting on him for support. Tori was caught off guard by that, and Clegg made his move, entrusting the rest to Tori, which made Tori surprised again. Beard found the situation amusing. It stated that things were getting interesting, especially now that Tori was being counted on for support. Tori scolded it since this was not the time for jokes. He asked what would happen to the magic crystal if Angus defeated the basilisk. Beard reminded him that extracting a magic crystal required a specific procedure, and only he could do it. Then it warned him. If he failed to obtain the basilisk's magic crystal, everyone would die from the poison. Tori recalled the injured people he saw, and he made up his mind to do it. They proceeded with step 2, which was to peel off its scales. Peeling off its scales would be their biggest mission. Tori asked why. Beard told him to look closely. Beard admitted it didn't know exactly why, but the basilisk had a defensive magic that repelled magical attacks. Beard warned him that the restraints on the basilisk were about to break. Tori was shocked when he saw it break free. It also made Angus click his tongue in disappointment. Cahal could not believe that the basilisk had torn through the thick vines. Seeing that, they knew the situation was getting worse. Mina asked if the treatment was done. He answered that it was only temporary. Mina checked her arm and declared that it was enough. She prepared to attack because they could not let it move any further. Angus told them to hit it with everything they had, so they attacked at the same time. The basilisk only let out a loud roar. But the attacks were not working. The basilisk sprayed its poison again. Seeing that, Tori grabbed his magic crystal once more and used flapping magic. This made the basilisk scream loudly, and it attacked using its body. Angus blocked it, but he realized that its body was too heavy. Tori got worried for him, but all he could do to stop its attacks was use bird magic and flapping magic. If attacks did not work because of its defensive magic, then peeling off the scales would be even harder. Beard informed him that any magic would do as long as it was not physical type. It pointed out that a magic crystal's power was not limited to just one thing. Tori thought of the magic crystal guide. He knew there had to be some other magic written there. Looking through the book, he found information about the Eater's Planda magic crystal. It was described as a rare crystal that generated bird magic. He complained that it only had bird magic. Beard clarified that it was the main magic. It reminded him of what it said when they made their contract. It had not chosen him just because he was a strong adventurer. It was because he had a heart that never gave up no matter the crisis, and the drive to turn his imagination into reality. It reminded him not to forget that someone who could imagine a path to victory, even in hardship, was stronger than anyone else. Hearing that, Tori began to realize something. Since meeting Beard, he had been able to do things he never expected. With that, he called out the Eater's Planda magic crystal. He thought that if his imagination could become reality, then he could do it using that. Tori tried to clearly remember the inside of Eater's Planda's stomach. The magic crystal glowed brightly. Then Eater's Planda took shape, and he made it use acid magic. It opened its mouth and sprayed acid on the basilisk. The basilisk screamed loudly when the acid hit it. Clegg could not believe that Eater's Planda could be summoned, and Cahal noticed that the tough scales were melting away. Angus was impressed when he saw the power of Neil's brother. The basilisk was left injured. Beard was amused by his idea of using the acid. For Tori, Eater's Planda was a monster that dissolved things with acid. Beard commented that it was a good imagination, and that was the reason it chose him. It told him to do step 3, which was to sever the basilisk's head, but its head was far above him. Beard mocked him, asking if he was backing down now. Tori admitted that he did not expect that task, but then he noticed a sword. He felt more confident now that he had one. He was surprised when a sharp pain made him drop the weapon. His hand hurt. Beard reminded him that when he obtained the slime magic crystal, he went through a step where he let go of his weapon. So now, he was in a state where he no longer had a weapon. Tori could not believe it. He questioned it, thinking that rule only applied to slimes. He wondered how he could possibly cut off the basilisk's head. Beard told him that the procedure for obtaining magic crystals had not changed. It warned that if he did not follow it, he would not get the magic crystal. Then it urged him to hurry, warning that he was about to be attacked. When he turned around, the basilisk's mouth was just inches away from him, and it inhaled deeply. Tori realized he was about to be hit with poison at point-blank range. He knew that flapping magic would not make it in time. It sprayed poison. Everyone was worried for Tori. Tori just covered his face with his arms, and when he opened his eyes, he saw that someone had protected him. He was dumbfounded. It was Cahal who took the hit for him. He asked him why. Cahal shouted at him to stop, saying he was trying too hard to do everything on his own. He declared that he did not do it for Tori. Instead, he did it because he was the guild master of Azure Flamewings, that only when he showed what he was capable of would their guild truly shine. He grabbed Tori's collar and asked him if he was going to win, he should stop hesitating. Tori was caught off guard. Cahal then mocked him for joining his brother's guild and slacking off. He was pissed that Tori could not even move properly unless others helped him. Frustrated, he told him that if he thought he could do it, then he should prove it himself, and not act like a hero just because he was in his brother's guild. He advised him that if there were people nearby, he should run ahead of them and not hold him back. He asked this idiot if he understood. While they were busy, the basilisk was about to hit them with its tail. Angus blocked the attack. Cahal clicked his tongue. He was frustrated that Angus was always stealing the credit. He lost his strength, and he was in bad shape because of the poison. It made Tori panic. Angus told him he would take over, saying the basilisk's scales had already been peeled off. Now, he would handle the final blow. But Tori protested, saying that if he did that, no one would be saved. The basilisk attacked again, so Angus carried Tori and Cahal away from danger. He teased him, asking if he came to steal the credit after being pushed by Cahal. Tori quickly denied it. With urgency, he declared that he had to do it himself because it was the only way Cahal would be saved. He told Angus to leave it to him. Angus watched his expression and let him. He stayed back and defended the line. He smiled at him and told him to go. Tori perked up and thanked him. He rushed ahead, but he tripped. While watching him, Angus told Cahal that he raised his junior well. Cahal told him to shut up. He admitted that no matter how much he kicked or tormented him before, the light in Tori's eyes never dimmed. That was why he was so pissed off at him. Tori approached the basilisk. They were confused, wondering what he was doing. It looked like he was not even paying attention to the basilisk's attack. Clegg remembered that Tori pulled something like that during the Eater's plan to fight too. He wondered if Tori might have figured out a way to win. He asked Mina if she could back Tori up. She agreed and said she would enchant her arrows with wind magic to deflect the poison. At the same time, another member stepped in, saying he would clear the path for him. They quickly coordinated, preparing to support Tori's move. Mina used Wind Sword Strike. The other guild member used Water Orb. While Tori jumped toward the basilisk, his goal was to reach its neck. He jumped onto its tail. The basilisk let out a loud roar, while Tori climbed toward its head. But it moved, and he lost his balance. Beard mocked him, saying running on top of it was boring. He yelled at it to shut up. Angus realized that Tori was going straight for the neck. He helped him by unleashing a powerful attack. Then he offered his hammer to Tori to help him get up there. Tori was surprised. He landed on the pentagon barrier. Angus screamed at him to finish it. Tori jumped toward its head, but he could not use a weapon, and he could not use attack magic either. All he had was imagination. He unlocked the storage and took out the Rockbird's magic crystal. A little flashback. He remembered when Liam mentioned that their kitchen knife was getting dull. Liam asked where he had put the whetstone. He recalled that Sasha had been using it to play, but she could not remember where she left it. Liam pointed out that if she did not put things back, they could not find them when they needed them. Hearing that, Tori decided to take matters into his own hands. He used honing on it. Liam was impressed that the knife was sharp again. Sasha called it amazing. They told him that when it came to things like this, he was the best. They also said that his magic was incredible. Then, back in the present, he realized he had both a magic crystal and life magic, and no one understood life magic better than him. He combined the Rockbird magic crystal with his honing. A golden light burst out. Tori put all his strength into it, to create Wingbeat Slice. Clegg asked if he was able to get the head. They all watched carefully. Cahal looked optimistic about it, but Beard told him it was too bad, because all Tori did was cut the skin. The basilisk sprayed poison at him. Everyone got worried for him. The situation was bad. He took the full blast of the poison. He was hurting so much. It felt like his body was being stabbed with needles. He could not believe Neil went through that, as well as Mina, Cahal, and everyone else too. Thinking about them made him even more determined. They all needed the basilisk's magic crystal. He knew he was nothing if he just suffered and stopped there. He became determined to get that magic crystal. He was almost there. He focused, thinking the basilisk's head just needed to come down a little more. His eyes were blurry, but he could see someone place a hand over his, and asked him if he was still alive. He was left confused. Everyone was shocked when they saw who it was. Cahal got mad at that person, asking why he was there. Angus was left speechless. That person was Neil, and he was supporting Tori. Neil asked Tori if he was still alive. Tori could not believe his brother was there. Neil told him he had fought well. Tori wondered if he was just hallucinating from the poison. He could not understand why his brother was there. He lost strength. Neil saw that he was poisoned all over. Then, he called Angus to take care of Tori. Tori was confused by his brother's actions. Neil told him to leave the rest to him. He took out his axe and announced that he would take care of the basilisk. He declared that he would turn it into dust with his axe. Tori was surprised and confused when Neil vanished. When he appeared again, he was already near the basilisk's head. He slashed its body, making it scream loudly, and it prepared to counterattack. Neil saw it, so he stepped on his axe and launched himself in the other direction so he could evade the poison it sprayed. Mid-air, he turned and aimed his axe forward to cut through the basilisk's mouth. The others watched in shock, calling his move amazing. They could not understand how he was swinging such a massive weapon so easily. Some wondered if he was just enduring the basilisk's poison. Others immediately denied it, saying that was impossible. Mina and Clegg saw that he used enhancement magic. Tori was surprised. Then Angus grabbed him and asked if he did not even know his own brother's magic. He informed him that it was Neil's specialty, a composite enhancement magic. Power surrounded Neil and began to surge. It boosted everything: stamina, defense, magic duration, attack power, and agility. He stacked every physical enhancement possible to crush his enemies. All they saw was a flash of white light tearing through fresh bone, leaving nothing but ruin. Neil, the man known as the White Breaker's Spear, is the most powerful adventurer among them. Cahal commented that for a sick man, Neil really loved to show off. Angus replied that Cahal and Neil were alike in that way. Tori stood there amazed. Angus glanced at him. He wondered if Neil had come to save his little brother or to undo the past. With Neil's condition, Angus also questioned whether he could defeat the basilisk on his third attempt, 6 years earlier. A group of adventurers stood before a dangerous frontier. One of them asked if the land ahead was truly unexplored territory. Another confirmed it was, explaining that quest rank depended on how dangerous the land was. They wanted the Adventurers Association members' opinions before beginning the survey. Since it would be a major investigation, 2 specialists had been called in. They were Tori's parents. They pointed out that monster hunting grounds were not lacking, but the number of adventurers kept rising. They guessed it was because technology powered by magic stones had been advancing quickly. Since monster activity was low during the day, they decided to measure the mana levels first. They had also brought Neil with them. He wanted to become an investigator too, so this was his chance to observe real fieldwork. One of the members mentioned they had 4 children. If all of them became investigators, their family would become an elite household. Tori's mother smiled and replied that with both parents working for the association, the children might grow lonely. They rarely got to go home in this line of work. Their friend laughed and said that being an investigator meant long journeys far from home. Then he grinned and promised he would be Neil's bodyguard today. But in that moment, Neil suddenly felt something. In the blink of an eye, that man was swallowed whole by the basilisk. Everyone froze in shock. They had been completely caught off guard. Panic erupted as people screamed for everyone to retreat. The guards quickly formed a defensive line, determined to get the investigators out first. In the middle of the chaos, Neil stood frozen, unable to move. He was the basilisk's next target. His father shouted his name. Then his dad ran straight toward him, and was eaten instead. Neil saw it all happen with his own eyes. His mother grabbed him and tried to pull him away. Neil desperately tried to tell her what had happened to his father. But before he could, she was eaten too. As she vanished, she apologized to him. She entrusted his siblings to his care, and with her final words, she told him how much she loved him. Neil let out a scream that tore through the air. After that day, he became an adventurer and never stopped hunting this basilisk. 3 years ago, he finally found it, and he believed it was fate. But back then, the poison struck him down, forcing him to taste that same bitter defeat once again. But now, it was his turn. He would not stop until he was satisfied. Neil declared that the basilisk was obligated to face him. Neil's eyes turned sharp. He cut straight through the basilisk's body. Tori froze. He kept staring at his brother, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that was his brother. The gap between them hit him hard. He realized he was nothing compared to him. His mind filled with thoughts. It broke when Angus asked if he was scared. Angus said that 3 years ago, Neil looked just like that when he faced the basilisk. It was clear Neil wasn't hunting. He was trying to kill it. He was enjoying its suffering. And it wasn't just because he was poisoned. Neil told him not to tell Tori. That's how deep his hatred ran. Then, Angus dropped Cahal beside Tori. No matter the reason, he knew Tori didn't want to see Neil like this. He admitted he owed Neil for what happened 3 years ago, and he would repay that debt now. So he rushed forward. Cahal got annoyed. In the end, the Whitebreaker's spear was taking all the glory. Out of nowhere, Beard spoke, bringing bad news. It said the basilisk hadn't taken real damage, and Neil was already reaching his limit. This shocked Tori. Beard explained that Neil was burning his own life to use that magic. It shined because it was the flame of someone about to die. It warned that if this kept going, Neil wouldn't survive. And if Tori's spirit broke and he couldn't move, that would be a problem for Beard, too. So, it made an exception. It would grant him another step. If he accepted, he wouldn't be the same person anymore. Cahal was shocked when Tori suddenly moved. Of course, Tori wouldn't let his brother die. He was going to save him, even though his body was already weak. Meanwhile, Angus and Neil fought side by side. Angus realized even Neil's boosted attacks weren't working. Worse, the basilisk's scales were already healing. Neil had completely lost control. He cursed in frustration, realizing something was wrong with Neil. It didn't look like he was even trying to coordinate his attacks anymore. He thought the basilisk's poison was already messing with Neil's mind. Neil was panting. He felt his heart tighten, but he forced himself to hold on a little longer, to avenge his parents. He was about to strike when someone grabbed his weapon. He froze. Tori gritted his teeth. Neil didn't expect him. He shouted at Tori not to stop him. He said the beast was his. Tori promised he would save him no matter what. That stunned him. Tori said they would go home together. They would see the morning sun again. Then, they'd greet Liam and Sasha, laugh, live another normal day. Tori believed they could beat it together. Neil realized something. He remembered his mother's words. to take care of Tori, Liam, and Sasha. Now he understood. His mother's smile wasn't about revenge. It was about passing life forward. He realized if he died here, he would leave the same burden behind. Tori said that was exactly why they had to win. Together. They were about to be eaten. Clegg panicked when he saw it. Angus could only curse. But with a perfect timed spell, Cahal tried to help with his gravity. The basilisk's movement slowed. Everyone turned to Cahal. Angus said his timing was perfect. Cahal shouted back that he had a guild to protect too. He refused to stand there as bait. Angus called out to Neil. Cahal called Tori. They yelled at them to do it. Beard spoke about step 4, enhancing Neil with life magic. Neil pushed his power to the limit. They used a technique called honing. Their power surged, and blood burst from the basilisk's neck. Then its head fell on the ground, confirming their victory. Everyone was shocked and relieved that the brothers pulled it off. Cahal used to think Tori was useless, just a guy who could only use daily life magic. He always jumped into subjugations and dragged people down. Just an annoying brat with that grin. And yet, he was the one who took down the basilisk they all struggled with. Cahal muttered that Tori was a fool who could do it, if he actually tried. Tori looked at his brother and said they did it. Neil thanked him. Then he passed out. Tori shouted his name, drawing everyone's attention. He placed Neil's head on his lap, and saw the poison spreading even faster. Panicking, he called out to Beard and asked about the basilisk's magic stone. Beard said it should form at the base of the severed neck. Tori rushed over. Beard explained that normally, a magic stone forms through the usual process, but this time, they added a new step, mixing Tori's life magic with Neil's enhancement magic. It admitted it was curious what kind of crystal that would create. Tori snapped back. It better work, or they were done. He finally reached the magic stone, and quickly pulled it out. Beard noted how huge it was, twice the normal size. Tori told Clegg they got it. Clegg said to leave it to him. Tori asked if he could make the antidote. Clegg said yes and started crushing it. He broke it down with his dagger. Beard felt bad for the stone after all that work. Tori shut him down. People mattered more. The stone turned into raw power. Angus asked for an update. Clegg said he was still working. He listed the ingredients: basilisk, stone powder, kelpie whiskers, and Tridana's medicinal root. All they needed now was firepower. But they ran out. The fight used more firegrass than expected. Tori realized he could help. He offered to use his daily magic to create fire. He focused and activated it, ignite. Nothing happened. Angus saw it right away. He was out of mana. He said those two still needed more training. Then he tossed Clegg some flint and steel. Clegg caught it and said thanks, and sorry. He made the fire by hand. Then he activated alchemy. Light swirled and mixed together, and the vial slowly filled with liquid. Tori asked if it worked. Clegg said yes. With confidence, he said his alchemy never fails. He promised to cure Neil completely. He made Neil drink it. Neil groaned. Then he threw up and passed out again. Tori asked if that was the poison. He saw the dark marks on Neil's body start to fade. Clegg explained that what came out was a lump of condensed poison that had been eating him from the inside. The damage from all those toxins would take time to heal, but the danger was gone. Hearing that, Tori finally relaxed. He was just glad his brother was alive. Then he passed out and dropped to the ground. Clegg was shocked. Angus suddenly realized Tori had absorbed a huge amount of poison too. He told everyone who could still move to help Clegg. He urged him to keep making the antidote without stopping. Beard spoke quietly. Even the adventure boy had pushed himself too far. Still, it said he did well. But then it noticed something. The basilisk had artificial magic cast on it. And more than that, basilisks usually live deep in forests, far from humans. One showing up here made no sense. It started to feel uneasy. Something big had started moving behind the scenes. The next day, the townspeople began rebuilding their homes. Clegg was on his way to the clinic. The doctor greeted him with a smile as he walked in. He said the medicine was incredible. Everyone who was poisoned was already recovering, with no side effects. Clegg said that was great to hear. The doctor added that this wasn't something you could do with knowledge alone. He said Clegg had real talent in magic. He also heard Clegg had only recently joined Whitebreaker's spear, so he asked who taught him alchemy. Clegg said someone taught him the basics, but after that he learned the rest on his own. The doctor grew curious about who that person was, but Clegg changed the topic. He said he came to check on Tori and the others. The doctor's expression shifted. That worried him. At the tavern, everyone raised their cups for a toast. The place was lively. Cahal talked about how he used gravity magic during the fight. The others praised him, calling him amazing. They shouted that their leader was the strongest. Angus told him he did well, just like he expected from his little bro. Annoyed, Cahal snapped back and told him to stop calling him that. He argued they weren't even trained. in the same place. Their argument stopped when someone suddenly pinched Angus's ear. Angus yelled in pain. It was Clegg. He was annoyed they dragged their patients out just to drink. They explained that after a subjugation, they always celebrate everyone's hard work. They added that the Adventurers Association gave them rewards for the emergency mission, so it made sense to celebrate. Cahal complained it was only 1 gold coin each. For a job like that, it felt cheap. Someone pointed out that every guild in town took part in the fight. Then someone placed a hand on Clegg's shoulder. It was Neil. He said that when all the rewards were combined, it was actually a huge amount, enough to buy barrels of good alcohol. Neil showed up carrying exactly that. Clegg watched as Neil joined the celebration with a smile. Neil said it had been a while since he enjoyed this kind of fun as an adventurer. Seeing that, Clegg started to wonder, maybe this was the real Neil. Then he said he came to check on Tori, but now he couldn't understand how things turned out like this. Mina overheard him. He found Tori, sitting there, drinking juice, surrounded by girls praising him nonstop. Clegg called him a creep. Mina warned him that anyone who ruins the mood deserves to be kicked by a horse. She told him to just drink too. Then she added, moments like this were rare, like finding an exotic beast. Clegg couldn't believe even Mina was drunk. He realized a lot of adventurers were like this. A woman excitedly asked Tori to show his life magic since he was so good at it. Caught off guard, he hesitated. They started talking about the ignition spell he used for cooking. Now excited, they asked him to show it. Someone quickly brought a candle. Tori focused. He used ignition. A few seconds passed. Nothing happened. Everyone froze. Tori was confused. He admitted it wouldn't light. And just like that, the whole tavern burst into laughter. Cahal scolded him, saying he missed the perfect chance to impress everyone. He complained this always happens with him. Meanwhile, Mina watched quietly, wondering if he was acting clumsy on purpose. Tori scratched his head and said maybe he was a bit drunk. Then he said he'd go to the bathroom to clear his head. They told him to come back soon. Clegg and Neil saw him walking toward the exit. He felt relieved the moment he stepped outside. Even though the poison was gone, his body still hurt. Looking back, he admitted his fighting was reckless. But he didn't regret it. The town was safe, and his brother was alive. He smiled and muttered that he was glad he gave it everything. He took out the book and thanked Beard. It was all thanks to it. Then Beard spoke. It said it preferred payment over gratitude. He jumped in surprise. He complained that it always showed up out of nowhere. Then he asked what it meant by payment. It was just a book. Why would it need gold coins? Then he asked why he couldn't use life magic anymore. He demanded answers, sensing the book knew something. Beard explained it was a side effect of reaching the 4th step. His magic itself had changed. It said Tori now had to form his magic outside his body instead of inside his head. It told him to try casting it like drawing a circle in the air. Tori followed the instructions, and the magic activated. He used ignition. A beam of fire burst from his fingertip. He froze in surprise. Then, it disappeared. He was both impressed and confused by the power. Beard explained that since the control method changed, the power changed too. It added that his body had also leveled up from the battle. Beard said it was impressive. Then it asked him something. Did this make him want to meet? It told Tori to come find him. That would be his payment. Tori was left confused. Back to their home. Sasha called out to her brother Tori. She jumped onto his sleeping body and greeted him good morning. She woke him up because Liam said breakfast was ready. Still groggy, he greeted them and apologized for oversleeping. Liam greeted him as well. Then he asked Sasha to wake up Neil. Tori apologized for making him cook again, so he helped out. Liam told them to pick up some spices in town if they were going out for monster hunting. Neil arrived and greeted them. He was also impressed with their breakfast. They ate together. Tori felt like their ordinary days had finally returned. Neil had recovered quickly. Sasha and Liam were happy that every day felt bright again. This was the kind of day he had always dreamed of. He prayed for this kind of happiness every single day. But then, he remembered what Beard told him. To come and meet it. That would be his payment. Back then, our boy was caught off guard. He was confused. He questioned it, pointing out that they were already talking. He couldn't understand what it really meant by meeting. It said its real body existed somewhere in this world. Tori was shocked that it was actually human. Beard told him that if he truly wanted to be an adventurer, he should come find it. It told him to search for it while collecting magic crystals along the way. Then Beard abruptly ended the conversation. Tori was left confused by what it meant. Then he saw something being inscribed on a page. He noticed that the basilisk's data was being added to the grimoire's magic stone section. The basilisk's magic stone was A rank. It was a purple glowing stone that generated steel-scale magic. Its selling price ranged from 600,000 to 720,000 gold. Tori exclaimed that an A rank was incredible, and the price was insane too. In his head, he thought Beard was as selfish as ever. Back in the present time, he realized Beard was a real person somewhere in the world, not just a spirit inside a book. Beard had taught him everything, even when it barely knew him. It had also shown him how to grow stronger. Thinking of Beard as a real person, he grew curious about what kind of person he was. He wanted to meet him. 1 week later, Tori was in the market. He saw how busy the townspeople were, rebuilding their infrastructure. He thought about selling the magic stone, but with the exchange post in ruins, that wasn't an option for now. He had the magic stone, but no money. Since then, Beard hadn't appeared again. Because of that, he felt stuck in limbo. He did want to meet him, but he couldn't just leave town. Neil was still recovering, and Sasha and Liam were still kids. Again, he told himself that he still wanted to meet Beard, and he was certain there was a whole world out there he hadn't seen yet, but he couldn't decide. Frustrated, he called himself indecisive. Then he noticed something. Neil was training. He cut a boulder in half. He lifted his axe again, then spun it across his shoulder and arms. He caught it cleanly and struck again. Tori was impressed. When he spoke, Neil noticed him. Neil acknowledged that he was back. He asked how the exchange post was. Tori answered that the area had taken a heavy hit. That led Neil to conclude they would have to hunt and stockpile magic stones for a while. Tori volunteered to go, but Neil answered that it would be good for his rehab. His body was fully healed, so he wanted to rejoin the guild soon. He decided to train more that day to get back in shape. Tori asked if he could train him too. Neil didn't expect that. Tori felt embarrassed as he admitted he was a bit rusty and wanted to move again. Plus, he wanted to see how much stronger he had become. Neil accepted. Tori used a stick for their spar. He charged at Neil, and Neil used the handle of his axe to block it. Neil noticed that Tori's wound had healed. Tori confidently said yes. Neil sidestepped his next attack. Then he spun his axe and knocked the stick away. Tori couldn't land a single hit. He realized just how strong Neil was. Every move he made was being read easily. It made him think it would be better not to go, so he wouldn't just make everyone worry. Watching Neil read all his moves made him question if someone like him could even survive out there. He knew there was no way someone that weak could win. For a moment, he even thought about giving up. Neil called his name, then attacked. The strike broke Tori's stick and pushed him backward. Tori grabbed his arm. Neil pointed out that he was thinking useless thoughts again. Tori was surprised. Neil might not know what was bothering him, but he said that if he stayed half-hearted, he would never take his first step. He told him it was okay to feel lost sometimes, but he needed to stop hiding things. He told him to move forward with everything he had. Neil urged him to show all his strength. Neil and Tori fell silent. Tori was deep in thought. He told Neil that he was incredible. He admired how he could figure things out from just a short fight. Then he decided not to hide anything anymore. Neil didn't expect that. Tori touched his necklace. He shared that the necklace Neil gave him allowed him to meet Beard. He even thought that Neil was the one who was supposed to find the book. Then he asked if Neil was willing to hear everything. He had a lot to say. Neil, of course, was ready to listen. So Tori told him everything. He talked about the book he found in the cave. He explained how to obtain magic crystals, and the magic connected to them. He even shared that Beard told him to come find him. But he still didn't know where Beard actually was. Through it all, Neil simply sat there and listened. He didn't interrupt even once. Neil realized that the world was full of strange things. He knew the magic necklace had that kind of power. He said the world was filled with things he never knew about, especially magic like that. He found it troublesome that Beard told Tori to come find him without saying where. To him, that sounded arrogant. Tori agreed that Beard was a selfish, overbearing jerk. Then Neil asked to see the book. Tori took it out and showed it to him. Neil looked at the book, but couldn't see anything. Tori confirmed that he was the only one who could read it. Neil focused on it. Then, he struck it. Tori was shocked. Neil could tell something was really there. Because of the attack, Beard woke up. It commented that it was powerful mana. Tori was startled when it spoke. Neil simply watched their interaction. Beard asked why he was still in town. It thought they were just having a small sibling quarrel. Tori snapped back, calling it selfish, insisting he never said he was going. After a brief pause, Neil spoke and told him to go. Tori was confused. Neil knew Tori was hesitating because he wanted to meet him. He pointed out that it's not like he couldn't go. He said that if Tori called himself an adventurer, then he should take that first step. The word adventurer caught Tori's attention. Beard pointed out that his guardian had already given him the green light, so everything was fine. but Tori was still unsure. Then suddenly, he felt something. Neil attacked him. Tori was caught off guard, while Beard sounded amused. Tori asked what he was doing. Neil told him he would be his opponent until his hesitation was gone. Of course, Tori didn't expect that. Neil told him that the outside world wasn't just filled with strong monsters. He would meet people just as strong. He told him to think of this as a farewell gift. He told Tori to come at him with everything he had, to show his first step. Beard was impressed. It said that if Tori couldn't even beat his own brother, then his journey would end before it even began. Tori didn't understand what he was supposed to do. Neil reminded him that his enemies wouldn't wait for him to be ready. He attacked, and Tori had to duck. Neil used muscle enhancement on his right arm, then he swung his massive axe like it weighed nothing. Tori barely dodged. He asked if Neil was serious. Neil told him to be serious too. He made it clear that if Tori couldn't beat him now while he was still recovering, then he wouldn't stand a chance in the future. Hearing that, Tori clicked his tongue. He steadied himself. Then he used ignition. But in the next moment, Neil vanished. He appeared behind Tori and said he was too easy to read. Tori got hit on the head. He asked if Neil was really still in recovery. Neil noticed how much Tori's life magic had improved and asked if it was because of the book. Tori opened his storage and took out an Earth Panda magic stone. Then he attacked Neil using vine magic. Neil cut the vines down. Tori was shocked. Neil had now seen Tori's real strength. He laughed and said Tori was still as tough as ever. From that point on, he said he wouldn't hold back anymore. Tori's eyes sharpened. He was determined to show Neil everything he had. Meanwhile, Sasha rushed over to Liam to report an emergency. She told him that Tori and Neil were fighting. Liam was confused, so she told him to look. They saw Neil swing his axe at Tori, and Tori jumped back to dodge it. They were both serious, but Liam didn't seem worried. He told her they were probably fine. In fact, it looked necessary. Sasha didn't understand what he meant. Liam explained that back then, when Tori wanted to become an adventurer and refused to listen, Neil would handle it like this. Then, Liam added that whenever something new was about to begin, they would overcome something greater than who they used to be. Beard pointed out that Tori couldn't even see the opportunity right in front of him. It asked if he wanted advice, but Tori refused. Tori felt this was something he had to do with his own strength. If he lost here, he felt like he wouldn't be able to do anything later. So, he decided to put everything into this fight. He unleashed his full power against Neil. He took out the basilisk's magic stone from his storage. Then he used its steel scale magic on his right hand. His hand turned into a basilisk's claw. Neil tried to strike it with the back of his axe. It held firm. But Tori struggled to control the magic stone. It was too large. Still, he believed that with this power, he could finally fight Neil on equal footing. He declared he was coming. Then he charged forward. Neil watched him closely, but Tori tripped. He crashed to the ground. Then he realized his brother had disappeared again. Neil appeared behind him, the blade of his axe stopping just an inch from Tori's face. Just as Tori expected. He couldn't win. Neil let out a breath. Then he burst into laughter. He admitted that Tori had gotten stronger. Tori didn't expect that from him. Neil pointed out that there was a gap in experience between them. But if Tori had mastered the power of the magic stone, the outcome of the match would have been uncertain. He found it impressive that Tori could even block his axe. Because of that, he felt reassured sending him off. He told Tori to go and see the outside world. Tori was speechless. Neil continued, saying he should go not as Neil's brother, but as a full-fledged man, because he had the potential to become the strongest adventurer. Beard added that it was great he had his big brother's approval. Tori admitted that he didn't know anything about traveling. He didn't even know where to begin preparing. On top of that, he couldn't stop thinking about Sasha and Liam, who were still kids. And Neil had only just recovered from the basilisk's poison. He didn't want to cause trouble by doing whatever he wanted. Then he was caught off guard. Liam told him they would be fine. They could handle chores using the life magic he taught them. Sasha added that Neil would earn money since he was already training again. She happily shared that she could use ignition now too. Liam smiled and said they wanted to hear his adventure stories when he came back. Tori was moved, but he still looked panicked. Liam was confused. Tori admitted that he didn't know where he should go. He couldn't leave town with that kind of mindset. They couldn't believe that was what he had been worrying about. But Tori quickly denied it, saying that wasn't all. His biggest concern was still the family, and he couldn't just leave without a plan. Neil brought up what the book said about collecting magic stones. Tori agreed that Beard sometimes spoke on a whim. Neil suggested he head to the royal capital, Leorga. Hearing that, Tori repeated the name in surprise. Neil explained that the person who gave the necklace said they came from Leorga. so that would be the best place to start looking for clues. Tori asked for that adventurer's name, but Neil couldn't remember it. Beard cut in, saying there was interference magic. Tori was surprised. It explained that the person didn't want their identity to be known. That kind of magic existed. Even Beard didn't know who gave the necklace. Tori thought that if he could trace the origin of the magic stone in the necklace, he could get closer to Beard's location. He finally smiled. He had made up his mind. He would go to the royal capital, Leorga. With excitement, he told Beard that he was setting off on a journey to meet him. Moments later, Tori ran through the streets shouting Angus's name. He was searching for him. Frustrated, he said he couldn't find him anywhere, even after checking the whole town. Clegg heard him. Clegg told him to quiet down. Tori replied that he'd been looking for Angus this whole time. Clegg asked what business he had with him. Tori revealed that he's going on a journey, and Neil advised him to meet Angus for guidance. Clegg's brows furrowed at that. Tori declared that he'd be setting out to find a soul stone and become a solo adventurer. Then he added that Angus had traveled all over the world before creating the Whitebreaker's spear. Because of that, he wanted to learn from him and prepare for the journey ahead. Clegg simply said, "That's what they all say, Angus." Right then, Angus popped out from a barrel beside Clegg and yelled at him not to expose him. Tori asked what he was doing there. Angus explained that Neil told him to hide so Tori could get some practice searching for people. Tori looked confused. Angus hesitated to explain further. A while earlier at the tavern, they were talking about Tori's plan to leave on a journey. Angus thought it was great, but Neil said it wasn't that simple. He brought up Tori's power. He was concerned about the strange magic he was using. Angus noticed that it looked like Tori was using magic through a magic stone, but not a normal one. It was powerful enough to attract attention from the kingdom itself. He pointed out that they had already confirmed that during their spar. Neil said that kind of power was too great to keep hidden in their small town. He added that someone who had taken interest in Tori had already brought up the idea of a journey. So he planned to take advantage of that opportunity. Angus realized that Neil intended to let Tori leave before rumors could spread. He commented that Neil was a thoughtful brother. Then he asked what Neil needed from him. At the present moment, Angus admitted he thought he would be asked for something cooler. Tori felt apologetic toward him. Then Angus blamed Clegg for spilling the beans. Clegg replied that he also had business with Angus. He casually said that he was going on a journey with Tori. Tori and Angus were stunned. Then Cahal suddenly showed up and loudly asked if they were going on a journey too. After the preparations, they were seen off at the village entrance. Neil asked Tori if he had forgotten anything. Tori replied that he was all set since he prepared well. Angus asked if he had the travel book he gave him. Tori took it out and said yes. Tori then asked Clegg if it was really okay for him to leave town. He remembered that his brother had been sick. Clegg answered that he had recovered thanks to the basilisk's magic stone. Then he thanked Tori for it. Tori said it was nothing, but he found it strange that Clegg was being unusually honest. Mina reassured Tori that his brother and sisters would be taken care of by the town's guild. She told him to enjoy his journey to the fullest. Tori started to apologize, but she stopped him and said that a thank you was enough at a time like that. Tori smiled and thanked her sincerely. He then told Clegg to thank Mina too. Clegg thanked her and promised to send his brother's living expenses every month from his guild savings. Mina said goodbye to Tori. She also mentioned how much they had helped the town. Tori simply smiled. Sasha walked up to her brother and handed him a set of straw dolls. He asked what it was. She told him it was an amulet. She explained that it was from her, Neil, and Liam, so Tori wouldn't feel lonely because they would always be together. Tori was touched. He patted her head and told her he would come back after traveling the world. Sasha asked if that was true. He promised that when he returned, he would tell her lots of amazing travel stories. He also told Liam to look forward to it. Liam said he would be waiting. Sasha hugged Tori. Liam held back his tears. Neil wore a quiet, sad smile, while Tori grinned widely. Tori and Sasha made a pinky promise. Meanwhile, Angus was crying hard, muttering that having siblings was great. Neil told him not to cry more than him. Tori told everyone that he was heading out, and with that, he began his journey. He left town to meet Beard. A few moments later in the forest, he heard rustling. Suddenly, Cahal jumped out and shouted at him. He accused Tori of being a fraud and a weak life magic user. He warned that the next time they met, he would expose his useless magic. Tori was startled. Cahal complained that he planned to use Tori more, yet he just left on a journey. He warned him not to come running back in tears. After saying what he wanted, Cahal said goodbye and left. Tori was left confused. Clegg said that was probably just Cahal's way of encouraging him. That made Tori smile. He decided he had to do his best. As they walked through the forest, Tori asked why Clegg suddenly decided to join him. Clegg said he would be too vulnerable alone. He also pointed out that Tori would feel safer with him around. That made Tori wonder if he was really that worried. Clegg added that he already had something to look for and had planned to leave town anyway. Curious, Tori asked what he was searching for. Clegg answered that it was his origin. Tori was speechless. Then, the rustling bushes caught his attention. He thought Cahal had come back to say more. He called out his name, but Clegg suddenly yelled at him not to move. Tori froze, confused. Then he felt it. He asked what it was. His face turned tense while Clegg grew serious. Something was behind the trees. Some creatures emerged from the darkness. Tori was surprised to see those monsters. Clegg immediately recognized them. They were vampiric monsters, Superbats. Tori was confused about the vampiric part, so Clegg explained, those creatures didn't just suck blood from their prey. They could share the magic they drained from one individual across the entire swarm. Tori couldn't believe it. Clegg added that even if they drained Tori's magic, it would only give them a small boost. Tori called him out for mocking him, but Clegg warned that if they drank his blood, they would grow 5 times stronger and attack even more aggressively. Tori told him to make sure that didn't happen. He couldn't help but be impressed. Clegg was like a walking monster encyclopedia. Clegg told him it wasn't the time for that. The creatures shrieked and lunged at them. Clegg pulled out slime magic stone powder and bright worm magic stone powder. He shouted for them to mix. The reaction created a glowing potion. The flash of light blinded the bats and they dropped to the ground. Tori asked if they were weak to light. Clegg confirmed it. They would be too dazzled to move. Then Clegg struck them down. Tori picked up something new from that. Beard sounded amused. It noted that the enemies were Superbats. It said they should begin immediately and was about to explain the steps. But Tori stopped it. He admitted the situation was bad, but he wanted to fight without relying on Beard this time. Beard agreed and let him handle it his way. Tori was surprised at how easily it agreed. Beard reasoned that since he had already defeated a basilisk, this should be simple. It was showtime. Tori let out a small laugh. He felt fired up. Clegg, however, was worried. Tori couldn't even use life magic anymore. But then, Tori pulled out a flame scroll. He activated Soil Illumination. Light burst out, blinding several Superbats at once. The creatures shrieked. Even Clegg had to endure the brightness. He wondered what Tori had just used. Clegg was confused. Tori wasn't supposed to be able to use life magic anymore. Then it hit him. Was that life magic? Tori called out to him and asked him to be his strategist, to leave the plan to him. Clegg was caught off guard. Tori explained that Clegg had knowledge, experience, and stayed calm under pressure. That made him perfect to give instructions. He asked him to guide him and teach him along the way. Clegg didn't respond, so Tori called his name again. Clegg paused. He remembered something someone once told him. When he had enough knowledge and experience to overcome anything, when he had truly grown into himself, he should meet someone. He had once been someone's strategist. That memory made him smile. He agreed. Tori was surprised by the sudden change in his expression. Clegg told him that in exchange, Tori would be the infantry, and he had to follow every instruction exactly. Tori questioned why he had to be the infantry. Clegg told him to stop talking. Beard laughed, clearly amused by the dynamic. It said this was an interesting partnership. It would sit back and watch from the best seat. Tori told it to stay quiet since it couldn't even see Clegg. Then suddenly, they both reacted. The Superbats were coming back. Tori noticed their numbers had increased. Clegg asked if his other life magic spells, aside from illumination, were stronger too. Tori said yes. There were different kinds now, but they needed extra steps just to gain a small boost. Clegg said that compared to the basilisk, these things were nothing but gnats. Tori said he was counting on him. Then suddenly, Clegg scratched his arm. Tori was alarmed. He asked what he was doing. Clegg reminded him that Superbats were vampiric monsters, and his blood was packed with magic power. To them, it was the ultimate feast, and with that, he planned to wipe them out. Clegg took out mandrake powder and dried mint. He smashed the vial onto the ground. The strong smell instantly caught the attention of the Superbats. Every single one of them flew toward the spot where the vial shattered. Tori stared in shock. The monsters were actually retreating. Clegg explained that Superbats were extremely weak against powerful smells. He told Tori to carefully watch their movements. Tori immediately focused, and soon, he sensed where they were heading. The cave. Clegg then threw another vial filled with his own blood. He aimed directly at the cave entrance. The vial shattered the moment it hit. In an instant, all the Sufferbats rushed toward the cave. Tori quickly understood the pattern in their movements. Clegg shouted that he was counting on him. At that moment, Tori finally realized the entire plan. He would use his life magic to completely destroy the nest, and once the monsters gathered together, he would release the spell at full power. Our boy immediately created a huge ass magic circle. Beard looked amused as the magic circle formed in front of them. Tori concentrated all of his power into it. Then he unleashed ignition. Flames exploded violently through the cave. The Superbats were instantly swallowed by the fire. Even Clegg stared in awe. The cave continued burning non-stop. Tori nervously asked if it had worked. Clegg grinned and answered yes. The two of them immediately smiled and exchanged a fist bump. Beard suddenly asked whether they weren't going to collect the magic stones. Tori instantly remembered the Superbat's magic stones. He hurriedly gathered the remains into his hands. Then his expression froze. The magic stones had not crystallized at all. Tori could only stare in despair. Clegg looked confused and asked whether monsters were supposed to leave behind magic stones after being defeated. Tori relayed the question to Beard. Beard admitted that it had assumed the same thing too. It then pointed out that this was exactly why Tori needed to follow the proper harvesting procedure properly. Tori immediately warned Beard not to casually talk in front of Clegg. But before they could continue arguing, Beard suddenly asked another question. Was it really okay to leave the cave burning like that? The moment they looked around, their faces turned pale. Even the forest had started catching on fire. Clegg cried out that this was bad. He complained that Tori's magic was way too powerful. He reminded Tori that he had specifically said he was counting on him. Beard asked whether this was really the time to argue. It pointed out that their escape route was already completely blocked by the flames. Tori immediately shouted back and asked if this was seriously the time to keep arguing. The fire around them continued growing larger. Tori panicked and asked whether Clegg had any magic capable of putting the fire out. He asked if Clegg could at least use water magic or something similar, but Clegg replied that he could only use life magic. Then suddenly, an idea flashed through Tori's mind. If it was a preservation-type spell, then maybe it could work. Tori immediately got to work. By now, his life magic had already reached a fairly advanced level. Clegg suddenly felt the surrounding air turn cold. Even Beard looked amused. Tori activated the spell. Chill. A massive magic circle spread across the sky above them, and moments later, ice began raining down from the air. The surrounding trees rapidly froze solid. The flames were instantly extinguished. Tori sighed in relief. The fire was finally gone, but now the three of them were left shivering from the freezing cold. Clegg complained that Tori had frozen literally everything around them. Tori awkwardly admitted that he still couldn't control the spell properly. Then suddenly, a voice echoed nearby. She declared that she had finally found them. At the same moment, a spinning shield wrapped in chains flew straight toward them. Clegg noticed the attack first. He immediately grabbed Tori and pulled him away to evade it. Tori stared in shock. The spinning shield slammed into the ground with terrifying force. The impact alone caused the earth to cave in. Tori looked completely confused as he stared at the strange weapon. Then the attacker finally revealed herself. She angrily demanded to know if they were the ones responsible for creating this disaster. Tori and Clegg were both too stunned to even respond. The yellow-haired woman introduced herself as Alba, and she swore that she would never forgive criminals like them. The woman was an elf. She pulled the chains connected to her shield and lifted the weapon off the ground. She called them villains. Tori stared at her in surprise. She swore that she would never let them escape. Then she launched her shield toward Tori again. The attack smashed into the ground and shattered it apart. Tori immediately realized how terrifyingly powerful she was. Clegg pointed out that the situation was bad since they were dealing with an elf. He explained that the elf race possessed magical power said to be the peak of all living beings, and their intellect far surpassed that of humans. Not only that, elves lived incredibly long lives, meaning their combat experience was on a completely different level. And on top of all that, an elf's magic power was said to be around 10 times greater than a human's. The spinning shield suddenly flew toward them again. Tori quickly ducked to avoid it. Then she immediately launched it at them once more, forcing Tori and Clegg to keep running. Tori shouted that he didn't remember ever doing anything that would offend an elf. But Clegg immediately pointed out that he had burned an entire forest and then frozen the whole thing solid afterward. The elf yelled at them to stop pretending. She accused them of being the ones who attacked their village. Tori asked in confusion what she was even talking about. She grew even more annoyed at his clueless act and declared that he wasn't fooling her at all. She called him the worst while continuously attacking him with her shield. She stated that she had seen him together with the Superbats earlier and demanded to know what excuse he had for himself. Tori repeated the word in confusion. Superbats? Even Clegg looked confused. She was obviously talking about the monsters they encountered earlier. Tori barely avoided another attack. Fortunately, they had already reached a small cliff. The two of them immediately jumped down. Now the elf grew even more furious, believing they had been hiding from her the entire time. She yelled at him to stop running and called him a coward. She demanded to know where he had gone. While running, Tori quietly asked Clegg if there was an elf settlement nearby. Clegg replied that elf settlements normally shouldn't exist this close to human territory, but after seeing everything, he wasn't so sure anymore. Tori quietly agreed. Then he shouted toward the elf that they had absolutely nothing to do with the Suforbats and that this was their first time entering the area. He admitted that burning the forest had been their fault and offered to apologize, begging her to at least listen to their explanation. But she immediately screamed at him to shut up. She revealed that once they disappeared, the Suforbats would regain their senses, and the village would finally return to normal. Tori and Clegg reacted in complete confusion, unable to understand what she meant. Clegg admitted that he had no idea either. But there was one thing he noticed. Despite being an elf, she still hadn't used a single spell. She had only been attacking them with her shield the entire time. That made him feel like she was testing them for something. Then suddenly, she noticed him. Now she had finally located where they were hiding. Tori couldn't believe that she had already spotted them. Clegg informed him that elves naturally possessed incredibly sharp eyesight. He told Tori to move back immediately, but at that exact moment, a Suforbat suddenly attacked him. Clegg was slashed across the shoulder. Even Alba looked surprised by the sudden attack. Tori immediately became concerned. Then all of them noticed the incoming swarm of Suforbats approaching from above. Tori quickly asked if Clegg was okay. Clegg groaned in pain while holding his shoulder. At the same time, Alba started reconsidering her assumptions. She realized that they might not actually be controlling the Suforbats after all. Tori suddenly wondered if one of the monsters had escaped earlier when he burned the nest. The moment that thought crossed his mind, his expression froze in shock. More Suforbats were arriving. He shouted in disbelief and asked why there were still so many left. Then Beard finally explained the reason. It told him that the Suforbats had drunk Clegg's blood earlier, which made them significantly stronger. Tori couldn't believe what he was hearing. Beard explained that Suforbats were hive-mind monsters that shared the magical energy they absorbed through blood. The one that escaped after Tori used life magic most likely spread that power to the rest of the swarm, and now the entire group had regrouped and returned while following the prey their comrade had discovered. Tori stared in disbelief. Then Beard added another terrifying detail. The Suforbats had already marked Clegg as their source of nourishment, which meant that unless they completely wiped out every single Suforbat in the area, the hunt would never end. Meanwhile, Beard sounded completely entertained by the situation. It declared that things were finally starting to get fun now. The Suforbats attacked. Tori immediately grabbed Clegg and warned him to watch out. He carried him over his shoulder, but Clegg shouted that he could still run on his own. Tori immediately told him to shut up and stop trying to act tough. Alba looked completely flustered by the scene. Tori noticed her reaction. Without hesitation, he grabbed her arm. The sudden contact shocked her. Then he dragged her along so all three of them could escape together. Alba looked confused and asked why they were running in the first place. She told them they should just order the Suforbats to stop. Tori immediately cut her off and shouted that he had been telling her from the beginning that it didn't work like that. He warned her that once the monsters suck someone's blood, that person would become their prey as well. Clegg noticed the swarm rapidly catching up behind them, and his condition wasn't looking good either. He quickly pulled out several vials. He took out Dryad's Lost Seed, Fly Moth Powder, and an Ashua grass ingredient. Then he mixed everything together. A bright light instantly burst from the mixture. At the same time, the wound on his arm started healing. Alba stared in amazement when she saw the alchemy magic. She quickly asked if he was a healer. Clegg replied that he had simply used a healing potion. Then he immediately told Tori to put him down. Tori asked if he was sure since he could continue carrying him while running. But Clegg ordered him to stay still for a moment. Alba quietly realized that there was actually a healer among them. Meanwhile, the Suforbats continued closing in. Tori raised his fingertips. Water slowly formed around them. Then he activated Chill. The charging Suforbats instantly froze in midair, and moments later, their frozen bodies started falling from the sky. Alba stared in awe after witnessing the monsters freeze solid. Clegg immediately asked Tori how many more times he could still use that magic. Tori admitted that he barely had any mana left and probably couldn't cast the spell many more times. Alba suddenly called out to him, but Tori impatiently answered that he didn't have time for this right now. She asked if the spell he had just used was actually life magic. Tori answered yes and asked why it mattered. Alba immediately called the magic seriously impressive. Tori narrowed his eyes and asked if she was mocking him, but Alba quickly clarified that she was actually relieved. Then she thanked him for protecting her earlier. Tori replied that it was only natural because if she had gotten her blood sucked, all of them would have been in danger. Alba lowered her head slightly and admitted that she had misunderstood them from the start. He pointed out that it was exactly what he had been telling her the whole time. He told her to actually listen when people were talking. Clegg suddenly warned them that the Su-4 were coming again. Tori looked surprised when Alba suddenly let go of him. She declared that elves never forgot debts of gratitude or obligations. Then she focused her attention forward. She swung her shield with tremendous force and struck the incoming Su-4. Several of them immediately fell from the sky. After retrieving her shield, she announced that she would cover the rear. Tori immediately called her an idiot for suddenly stopping like that. Clegg could only let out a tired sigh. Then Clegg pulled out several more vials and declared that his wounds were already fine enough for him to fight again. But Tori advised him to rest for at least a little longer. Our boy insisted that fighting was his responsibility. Then they noticed Tori beginning to cast another spell. He unleashed Chill. A large number of Su-4 instantly froze in mid-air. But Tori admitted that he only had a few casts remaining, so he quickly asked Clegg if he had any plan capable of wiping the monsters out completely. Clegg replied that at this point, they might just have to brute force their way through it. Tori immediately agreed. Then he told the elf to back Clegg up. Alba reminded him that her name was Alba. Together, the three of them focused on annihilating the incoming Su-4. Meanwhile, Beard watched the entire scene with amusement. It commented that they actually made quite a nice group. Alba naturally filled the role of defender. Clegg, as their healer, handled support and recovery. And Tori naturally became the attacker responsible for offense. Beard declared that this was what a proper party setup looked like. The sight made it nostalgic for the old days. And now, it was looking forward to seeing what this group could truly accomplish. The Su-4 came charging toward them again. Tori complained that there were way too many of them. He decided that he would burn them again to reduce their numbers. He immediately created a magic circle to activate Ignition. But Alba suddenly stopped him. Tori looked shocked. He scolded her for recklessly jumping in front of him like that because it could have gotten them killed. Alba immediately reminded him that he was the one about to burn the entire forest down again. Tori had absolutely no comeback to that because she was completely right. Clegg quickly told him not to make the elf angry again. Tori then asked how they were even supposed to defeat the swarm at this rate. Alba calmly replied that they would simply crush them head on. Tori stared at her and muttered that she was just an elf musclehead. Clegg immediately reminded him not to judge her based on appearances alone. Meanwhile, the number of Su-4 continued increasing. At this rate, their mana would eventually run out completely. Clegg pointed out that Alba's attacks were currently buying them valuable time. But even so, he had no intention of forcing a single elf to handle everything alone. Then, he cast Dissolve. His plan was to first create an opening in the swarm. Together, he and Alba charged directly into battle. Meanwhile, Tori was left standing behind them while watching the fight unfold. With the current level of his life magic, he knew he could definitely wipe out the entire forest if he wasn't careful. A Heinta Ignition always burned everything surrounding it, and he wasn't confident that he could successfully cast Kurisu Chill one more time afterward. That meant he couldn't use his strongest finishing move life magic right now, but at the same time, he also understood that Alba and Clegg didn't possess unlimited stamina either. Then Beard suddenly spoke up and asked what exactly he was hesitating for. Tori looked surprised after hearing him. Beard reminded him not to forget that he already possessed real power. Those words immediately made him think deeply. First, he considered Eat's Planda's Vine magic. Second, Rockbird's Wingbeat magic. Third, the Steel magic scale. He wondered which magic crystal would be best suited for handling a massive swarm during a prolonged battle. That thought led him to open the encyclopedia page. As he flipped through it, his eyes suddenly stopped on a particular entry. He quietly wondered if he could actually use it. Then he slowly looked around. Clegg noticed the change in his expression and immediately realized that Tori was probably about to try something crazy again. Clegg asked Tori what was wrong. Tori remembered the cave from earlier and asked Alba where the Su-4 originally came from. Alba answered that their nest was located above the cliff nearby. She also reminded them that later they'd be helping her restore the frozen forest. Tori suddenly bit his own forearm and made it bleed. He intentionally tried to attract the Su-4 with his blood, but nothing happened. Tori quickly realized that his blood barely contained any mana, so it wasn't effective bait at all. Clegg immediately shouted that the exact same plan had already failed earlier. Tori muttered that the Su-4 were greedy little monsters. Then something suddenly clicked in his mind. The monsters weren't attracted to blood itself, they were attracted to mana. He immediately unlocked his storage. Then he pulled out Rockbird's magic crystal. The moment the crystal appeared, the Su-4 instantly went into a frenzy. Tori continued holding the crystal in front of them, and as expected, the entire swarm started chasing him. After all, mana crystals were basically pure mana lamps to creatures like them. Then he moved to the next step of his plan. Without warning, he grabbed Alba's arm. The sudden action startled her. Tori quickly apologized and told her to just cooperate with him for now. Clegg immediately demanded to know what he's planning. Tori simply told him to trust him and declared that he'd leave the rest to Clegg afterward. He also told him to come once everything was over. Tori thought to himself that if the Super Bats were fed mana-rich blood, they'd continue multiplying endlessly. And since he couldn't freely use large-scale magic right now, there was no way to shake them off normally. Then he activated Wingbeat Magic. Alba stared in disbelief when she saw him using magic to fly through the air. She genuinely wondered what kind of insane person this guy was. Meanwhile, Tori confirmed that the Suforbats were following him perfectly. Soon, he found the cave again. Then he immediately dove straight inside. Tori ordered Alba to guard the entrance until every last Suforbat entered the cave. Alba looked completely confused. But since the swarm was rapidly approaching, she focused on defending instead. She spun her shield rapidly, creating a defensive barrier around them. Then she demanded to know what exactly he was planning to do in a place like this. Tori prepared to cast another spell, but just before activating it, he stopped for a moment and admitted that he was about to do something incredibly reckless. And according to him, the final step depended entirely on Clegg. Alba had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. Then she noticed even more Suforbats pouring into the cave. She declared that every nearby Suforbat had already gathered inside. Tori apologized to her in advance for dragging her into this mess. Then, he confidently assured her that everything would definitely work out somehow. That reassurance only made Alba even more nervous. Tori admitted that the monster he was about to use was an enormous pain to deal with, which was why he originally didn't want to rely on it. Then he activated Strala's storage unlock and called forth the Basilisk's magic crystal. Tori declared that the rest was now in the strategist's hands. Then he unleashed deadly poison magic. Poison rapidly filled the entire cave. After the Suforbats were completely dealt with, Tori suddenly got smacked on the head hard enough to leave a huge bump. Naturally, the one who hit him was Clegg, who looked genuinely furious. Tori awkwardly tried to laugh the situation off. Clegg stated that every Suforbat in the area had been wiped out by the poison. Then he demanded to know what Tori would have done if he hadn't been there to save him afterward. Tori immediately answered that he completely believed Clegg would rescue him no matter what. He confidently declared that he trusted him entirely. Clegg became completely speechless after hearing that. Tori then pointed out that somehow, they still managed to pull everything off in the end, and that was what truly mattered. Alba immediately shouted at him, asking how this situation was possibly something worth celebrating. She angrily complained that she had nearly died because of that idiot. Then she outright called Tori complete trash. She loudly declared that she absolutely refused to forgive him. Clegg immediately agreed and stated that he wouldn't forgive him either. Meanwhile, Tori continued insisting that they technically won in the end, but Alba refused to let the matter go so easily. Moments later, Tori held the remains in his hands, but the moment he touched it, the material crumbled back into ordinary sand again. He sadly realized that turning it into a proper magic crystal really wasn't easy. Clegg asked if he had failed again. That was when Tori learned that creating magic crystals wasn't guaranteed to succeed every time. Suddenly, they heard a scream nearby. Tori immediately reacted in alarm. The surrounding trees looked terrible. Alba quickly informed them that the forest was rotting this time. Tori immediately realized that the damage came from the basilisk's poison. Clegg added that the poison was even eating away at the soil itself. Tori awkwardly apologized to Alba, but honestly, he didn't even know what else he was supposed to say at this point. Then Clegg suddenly stated that he could fix it. Both Tori and Alba reacted in surprise. Tori immediately asked if that was actually possible. Clegg explained that antidotes work by breaking down poison itself. Whether the poison existed inside a person or inside the ground, the basic principle remained the same, and according to him, the current damage was still manageable. Alba immediately became interested. Clegg then poured the antidote directly onto the contaminated soil. Alba looked surprised. Clegg asked her how it looked now. He confidently stated that the poison inside the ground should already be gone. Alba confirmed that the poison had definitely disappeared, but the forest still hadn't completely returned to normal. In the end, she simply said that it was fine. Although honestly, she admitted that she had expected him to restore things more perfectly. Both Tori and Clegg immediately fell silent. Tori quietly admitted that the entire situation was his fault. Then he turned toward Clegg for help again, but Clegg apologized and admitted that this was already the limit of what he could currently do. Tori quietly answered that he understood. Then suddenly, Beard spoke up. It reminded Tori that evolved magic existed for situations exactly like this. Tori nearly jumped after suddenly hearing Beard's voice again. He immediately panicked and loudly announced that he suddenly needed to go to the bathroom. Alba looked confused and asked what was wrong with him. Meanwhile, Clegg narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Once Tori finally got away from the others, he immediately scolded Beard and told it not to suddenly talk while he was around other people. But Beard calmly replied that it was about to show him what "it's fine" actually meant. Tori looked confused. Beard proudly declared that it had already cleaned up after Tori countless times before, and according to it, this was finally the perfect time for a long overdue lesson. Then it simply told him to synthesize it. Tori immediately asked what exactly he was supposed to synthesize and how. Of course, Beard was talking about the Suforbat's magic crystal. Tori looked even more confused because every single magic stone he touched immediately turned into sand. But Beard explained that this was exactly why synthesis was necessary in the first place. Tori somehow became even more confused afterward. Then Beard officially began what it proudly referred to as Chapter 6, How to Synthesize a Suforbat Magic Crystal. Moments later, Tori somehow ended up holding a frying pan and a spoon. He was even wearing an apron and a chef's hat, making him look like a completely misplaced chef. Alba immediately looked annoyed. She genuinely thought he was messing with her at this point. But Tori quickly insisted that he seriously wasn't joking around. Then he quietly asked Beard if he really needed to wear such a ridiculous outfit. But Beard calmly replied that if he looked the part, then he would naturally fit the part too. Tori became annoyed after discovering that the outfit was apparently only meant to improve motivation. Beard told him that they should begin. Step 1 was gathering the Suforbat's magic stone. Step 2 was simmering it gently. For that step, Tori used the life magic skill, Warming. And Step 3 was cooling it slowly. For this part, Tori activated Chill. After that, the process was complete. Alba stared at him in confusion and asked what exactly he had just done. Tori casually replied that since it was life magic, pretty much anyone should be able to use it. Alba was about to call it amazing. But before she could finish, Clegg suddenly questioned whether she truly believed that. Then Clegg focused on the object in Tori's hand and asked if it was really a Suforbat's magic crystal. Tori explained that he had suddenly remembered the proper method midway through the process. Clegg still looked suspicious since Tori completely failed earlier. But, regardless of how it happened, the result was still useful for them. Then Tori noticed something nearby. He pointed out that there was still some left. Both Alba and Clegg reacted in confusion. Tori was referring to a flower. He gently pressed the Suforbat's magic crystal against it. Then he activated synchronization magic. The entire area suddenly glowed brightly. Alba stared at the scene in shock. Flowers rapidly bloomed throughout the vast field around them. Alba couldn't believe that the dead flowers had actually come back to life. Tori explained that since Suforbats shared a hive mind, he used that same principle to synchronize the healthy flower with all the withered ones nearby. Although technically, he clarified that he had only cloned identical versions of the plants for now. But eventually, those flowers would create seeds, new sprouts would grow, and the next generation would slowly restore the entire forest again. This was what Beard meant earlier by saying, "It's fine." Suddenly, Alba started crying. Tori immediately panicked and worried that maybe what he did somehow wasn't enough. He awkwardly apologized and admitted that this was currently the best he could manage. But to his complete surprise, Alba suddenly screamed that it was way too amazing. She immediately bombarded him with questions without even giving him time to respond. She asked if this was really life magic. She asked if beginner magic was truly capable of doing something like this, and most importantly, she desperately asked how he even managed to pull it off. Then, suddenly, she asked him to become her magic teacher. Tori looked completely confused. Moments later, we saw both Clegg and Tori were left stunned and speechless. Apparently, Alba couldn't use magic at all. Tori and Clegg genuinely couldn't understand how that was possible for an elf. Alba explained that she was currently traveling around for training, and she believed that if she traveled alongside an amazing teacher, then eventually she would learn magic too. Tori immediately told her to wait a second and loudly insisted that there was no way he could become anyone's teacher. But Beard calmly told him that it was fine, since he had already earned Alba's trust anyway. Tori immediately whispered back and told Beard to stop casually saying whatever it wanted. He asked Alba if she encountered the Suforbats during her training journey. He remembered her mentioning earlier that the monsters were attacking a village. Alba explained that she had stopped by a nearby village when one of her friends was suddenly attacked by Suforbats. Clegg immediately asked whether this friend was also an elf. Alba answered yes, but she added that it wasn't only her friend suffering there. A huge number of people in the village had already been affected. She explained that the victims all had their blood drained and were left bedridden afterward. That was the reason she tracked down the Suforbat nest in the first place. She wanted to wipe them out completely. But even then, she could still tell that something felt wrong about the situation, even after destroying the nests and exterminating the monsters for years. The villagers' symptoms never completely disappeared. Hearing that, Beard immediately realized something. It suspected that someone might be intentionally using the Suforbat's synchronization ability. Tori looked shocked after hearing Beard's conclusion, and without realizing it, he accidentally blurted the thought out loud. Naturally, both Alba and Clegg heard him. Clegg immediately stated that because of the hive mind, even if only one Suforbat survived, the entire swarm could eventually multiply all over again. Alba slowly realized what that implied. She asked if someone was deliberately making the Suforbats attack villages on purpose. Beard suspected that the goal was most likely gathering massive amounts of magical energy, although even it had no idea what someone would need that much power for. Still, Beard warned Mr. Adventurer, also known as Tori, to stay extremely careful, because something unimaginably evil might be hiding behind the Suforbats. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, cigarette butts were piled high inside an ashtray. A man wearing a bird mask quietly wondered what was happening. Then he noticed something strange. The number of Suforbats under his control no longer matched up. Back to our MC. Tori finally found something important. He happily recovered his backpack, which contained all of his food, clothes, maps, and other supplies. Meanwhile, Clegg managed to recover his belongings as well. Alba then asked if they were truly planning to travel with her. After all, she already knew that the two of them were travelers themselves. Tori replied that while they were indeed traveling, they didn't actually have a fixed destination anyway. And more importantly, Alba's friend was currently in trouble. He believed that Clegg would probably agree to help too. The moment he looked over, he noticed Clegg quietly sighing. Tori immediately asked if he was okay. Clegg immediately blamed everything on him. He complained that Tori kept recklessly throwing around flashy life magic, while also failing at making magic crystals in the weirdest possible ways. At this point, he genuinely needed some proper rest. Then Clegg told Alba to lead the way, and declared that he would even cover the inn fees. Alba immediately asked if he was serious. She reminded him once again that elves never forgot debts of gratitude or obligations. Then she excitedly invited her master to head out together. Tori immediately protested and loudly declared that he never agreed to become her master. Meanwhile, Clegg stayed quiet for a moment before suddenly grimacing in pain. It looked like his injured arm was still bothering him. Eventually, the group crossed a river. Then they carefully walked along the side of a cliff before finally reaching the top. Ahead of them stood a village, and surprisingly, it looked fairly large and well-developed. Alba quietly commented that it used to look even better. Once they finally arrived, the entire place felt deserted. Tori stared around in disbelief. Alba explained that the village became like this because of repeated Suforbat attacks. Tori immediately became alarmed. Alba shared that not too long ago, the village had still been lively and full of people, but around this period, the Suforbat suddenly started attacking non-stop. Anyone who possessed mana became a target. Even children were bitten. The villagers desperately fought back and barely managed to drive the monsters away each time. That was when Alba's friend was bitten and eventually became unable to move anymore, which was why Alba had desperately been searching for someone capable of using healing magic. Tori asked if her friend was currently inside the village, but before Alba could answer, he suddenly noticed something wrong. Clegg suddenly dropped to his knees. Tori immediately became worried. Then he noticed the wound on Clegg's shoulder again. He asked if the Suforbat wound was acting up once more. Tori thought the recovery potion had already healed it earlier, but Clegg clarified that while the physical wound itself had healed, for some reason it still felt like his mana was continuously being drained away. Tori immediately asked what they should do and whether Clegg needed anything. Clegg answered that he needed a strong mana recovery potion. Tori then asked Alba if there was a pharmacy or hospital somewhere in the village. Alba explained that there wasn't any pharmacy, but there was a poorhouse, and right now every victim in the village was being treated there. The moment they arrived, they were greeted by the sight of countless sick people lying around the building. Tori couldn't believe that all of them were victims of the Suforbats. The villagers immediately glared at them. Some even prepared themselves to attack. Tori looked completely confused by the hostility. Alba quickly stepped forward and told everyone to wait. She explained that the two of them were not enemies, and that they could use healing magic to help the villagers. The crowd immediately reacted in disbelief. Someone loudly asked if that was really true. An old man quickly called out for Father and announced that a healer had finally arrived. Moments later, a man with a cigarette hanging from his mouth walked outside. He bluntly stated that relying on healing magic was useless, especially when what they truly needed was medicine from the Knive Merchant Guild. Tori stared at him in confusion. He genuinely did not expect a priest to casually walk around while smoking. The priest asked Alba why she didn't simply head directly to the Knive Merchant Guild. Alba explained that the Suforbats attacked again while she was on the way there. Still, she insisted that these two were incredible people, and she genuinely believed they might be capable of curing everyone. But before anyone could continue talking, the priest suddenly grabbed Clegg's injured arm. Clegg immediately groaned in pain. The priest calmly observed the wound and concluded that several hours had already passed since the bite occurred. Although healing magic had treated the surface injury, the root cause itself remained untouched. He immediately classified Clegg as another victim of the so-called vampirism incident. That being said, the priest openly admitted that he doubted the two of them would actually be useful. Still, he promised to examine Clegg properly later. For now, he simply advised him to rest. Then, without hesitation, he casually referred to Clegg as a quack. Clegg froze in disbelief after hearing that. Meanwhile, Tori immediately became offended and warned the priest to watch his mouth. Alba quickly stepped in and explained that although the man was foul-mouthed, he was still a benefactor to the village. And according to her, he was also the person who saved Eva. Clegg immediately asked who Eva was. Alba then guided them toward a green-haired girl lying nearby. She introduced Eva as her close friend. Tori then asked what exactly the so-called vampirism incident was. Alba explained that this was simply the name the villagers gave to the condition. Anyone bitten by the Sufor bats would continuously have their mana drained away. And according to the villagers, the victim's life would completely run out within roughly a month. Alba quietly explained that Eva had already been attacked 3 weeks ago. As she said that, the pain in Alba's expression became obvious. There wasn't much time left anymore. Then suddenly, Eva slowly woke up and weakly reached out to hold Alba's hand. Eva weakly called out Alba's name. She mentioned that she heard Alba had gone to the Knive Merchant Guild, so after noticing Tori and Clegg nearby, she quietly asked who they were. Alba immediately explained that the two of them were the benefactors who had saved her earlier. She confidently promised Eva that they would definitely save her too. Hearing those words, Eva smiled weakly. She happily said that if she recovered, then she would finally be able to travel together with Alba again. She also expressed hope that Alba would eventually learn how to use magic. But suddenly, Eva lost consciousness again. Alba and Tori immediately panicked. Clegg quickly checked her condition and explained that she was still breathing. She had simply run out of stamina. After checking her pulse, Clegg explained that while it was weak, she wasn't suffering from any actual disease. The real issue was severe mana depletion. As long as her mana supply could somehow be restored, there was still a chance to save her. Hearing that immediately gave Alba hope again. Clegg looked like he was about to explain something important next, but Tori suddenly became worried about Clegg's own mana condition too. Then, unexpectedly, Clegg exploded in anger. He suddenly shouted and demanded to know what kind of horrifying sanitation management this place had. He immediately ordered everyone who could still move to carry the patients outside and gather every cleaning tool they had available. Tori and Alba were completely dumbfounded by the sudden outburst. Clegg continued yelling at everyone to clean the entire place immediately. He declared that with hygiene, this terrible, even patients who could have been saved would eventually die. Then he turned toward the priest. Clegg demanded to know whether there was a nearby area where Kara fruit grew. The priest answered that Kara fruit could be found on the mountain behind the village, although the fruit itself was far too sour to eat normally. Clegg immediately ordered them to gather as much of it as possible. The priest looked completely confused. Then Clegg repeated the priest's own earlier words back to him. The root cause still hadn't been treated, which was exactly why he had decided to target the root cause directly instead. Then Clegg boldly declared that he would personally cure every single victim there, and after saying that, he immediately told the priest to shut up and actually listen for once. Before casually calling him a quack priest in return, moments later, Tori made a loud noise as he gathered his power. Then he activated the life magic spell, Laundry. The townspeople stared in amazement. Bubbles floated throughout the air, even though no soap had been used at all. Alba immediately praised her master. Tori instantly corrected her again and insisted that he's not her master. But deep down, he had to admit that being praised actually felt pretty nice. Then suddenly, someone called out to him. It was Clegg. Since the laundry was already finished, Clegg immediately ordered Tori to use magic to blow all the dust out of the room. And after that, he'd also need to repair every bed. Clegg made absolutely sure that Tori's life magic was being fully utilized. As a result, both Tori and Alba ended up working non-stop. Alba quietly whispered to her master that Clegg was basically a demon sergeant. Tori immediately told her once again to stop calling him master. Still, Tori secretly thought that being called a quack earlier probably flipped some kind of switch inside Clegg, although honestly, Tori also believed that nothing Clegg said was actually wrong. Meanwhile, Clegg continued barking out orders. He instructed everyone to boil and disinfect the sheets immediately. Then he ordered all the nurses to properly bathe themselves before treating the patients again. He warned them never to touch sick patients with dirty bodies. Then suddenly, someone threw small fruits directly at him. Tori and Alba both looked surprised. The priest grumbled that he had gathered the Kara fruits Clegg requested earlier. Clearly annoyed, he sarcastically asked whether Clegg was planning to make desserts with them or something. Clegg immediately fired back and declared that the priest was the real quack here. Then he clarified that the fruits were actually for creating medicine. The priest looked puzzled by that answer. He immediately showed Clegg the medicine that had already been delivered from the Neve Merchant Guild. But Clegg casually slapped the bottle away. Tori and Alba immediately turned pale after witnessing that. Clegg openly declared that he had no use for medicine that showed zero effectiveness and couldn't even heal patients properly. The priest could only mutter in anger, "You bastard!" Soon, large baskets filled with fruit were brought over. An old woman quietly asked the priest whether Kara fruits truly possessed medicinal properties. The priest immediately denied it and claimed that if such a thing were true, there was no way he wouldn't already know about it. But Clegg calmly replied that under normal circumstances, the priest would indeed be correct. Then he explained that once Kara fruit was compounded together with a certain ingredient, it transformed into a mana recovery potion. The priest immediately became interested. Clegg simply told him to watch carefully. He first took out Dryad's dropped seed. Then he added Kara fruit and ibex horn into the mixture. Finally, he activated compounding. Everyone watched closely as the entire basket of fruit began glowing brightly. Eventually, the alchemy process finished. Tori stared at the results and commented that the appearance of the fruit didn't seem any different at all. But Clegg clarified that only the appearance remained the same. Then he called out to the elf and tossed one of the fruits toward her. Alba quickly caught it. Clegg instructed her to feed it to her friend. Alba immediately agreed. Nearby, Ava was quietly sitting beneath a tree. She weakly asked whether she was really allowed to eat it. Alba gently held the fruit out toward her. Ava slowly took a bite. It was only a tiny bite. Then, everyone silently watched, waiting to see what would happen next. Suddenly, Ava's complexion started improving. She quietly stated that her body suddenly felt refreshed. Alba looked overjoyed after seeing her friend regain some energy. Now, Ava could even stand on her own again. Alba stared at her in amazement. She pointed out that Ava's color was finally returning too. And on top of that, she was now able to stand properly again. An old woman immediately declared that it was a miracle. Clegg calmly informed everyone that this was the true effect of the mana recovery potion. As long as they had this medicine, they could suppress everyone's symptoms. The villagers instantly erupted into cheers after hearing that everyone could finally be saved. Tori immediately praised Clegg and declared that he really was incredible after all. Clegg proudly answered that of course he was, but suddenly, his body nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Fortunately, Tori managed to catch him in time. Tori immediately complained that Clegg was overworking himself too much. But Clegg immediately fired back and pointed out that Tori constantly did the exact same thing. Then Alba suddenly approached Clegg. She handed him one of the fruits. Clegg immediately refused and claimed that he was completely fine. But Alba pointed out that someone who was truly fine wouldn't be staggering around like that. She told him that if the doctor himself collapsed, then nobody there would have anyone left to rely on, which meant he needed to remain the healthiest person in the village. Then she sincerely told him that she believed in him and urged him to hurry up and eat the fruit so he could recover properly. Finally, she referred to him as her master's strategist. Tori also urged him to eat it. Clegg could only scoff in response, but eventually he still ate the fruit. Right afterward, he immediately resumed ordering everyone around and demanded that the entire place be cleaned even more thoroughly. Not a single speck of dust was allowed to remain. Then the priest suddenly approached him. He asked Clegg whether he was actually a compounderer. Clegg calmly confirmed that he was. The priest stared intensely at him, causing Tori to immediately step between them and remind both sides that there had already been enough fighting for one day. But unexpectedly, the priest suddenly acted completely differently. He happily patted Clegg on the shoulder and openly declared that what he did was incredible. Apparently, he had never met a real compounder before. However, the priest also warned them about one important issue. The effectiveness of the medicine would only last around 2 to 3 days at most. Clegg looked surprised after hearing that. Tori immediately asked if it was actually true. The priest quickly clarified that he wasn't trying to insult them again. What he meant was that he wanted Clegg to continue producing the medicine periodically. Meanwhile, he himself would contact the Neve Merchant Guild and ask them to investigate the incident further, instead of focusing only on the medicine. Someone nearby then asked what exactly the Neve Merchant Guild even was. The priest explained that it was the major merchant guild governing the entire surrounding region. They had already started cooperating regarding the blood-sucking incident and were actively trying to resolve the situation. Then the priest quietly stated something hopeful. If the victims could recover, even temporarily. Then there was finally hope. At long last, they had managed to see a light at the end of the blood-sucking incident. Tori realized that Clegg's medicine couldn't completely cure the victims, At best, it only temporarily suppressed the symptoms, which meant that in the end, they still had no choice but to completely eradicate the Suforbats themselves. Then suddenly, Beard spoke up. It warned Tori that the situation probably wasn't going to be that simple. Tori immediately panicked and loudly announced that he suddenly needed to go to the bathroom again. Alba instantly found it suspicious that he kept going so often. Tori quickly rushed away and hid behind a nearby building. The moment he was alone, he immediately scolded Beard for suddenly speaking up again. But Beard calmly explained that the Suforbats were periodically draining mana by being used as a medium. According to Beard, this was a form of curse. Tori froze in shock after hearing that. At the same time, he also looked completely confused. Beard then explained what a curse actually was. A curse happened when someone hated a specific person or object so intensely that they prayed to gods or demons in order to inflict suffering upon them. Tori asked whether that was basically the same as a technique or spell, but Beard clarified that the two were fundamentally different. Sorcery used mana for the purpose of helping people. Meanwhile, curses used mana specifically to bring harm. Although the principles were somewhat similar, their nature was completely opposite. Then Beard continued its explanation. Suforbats naturally shared the mana they absorbed with the rest of their swarm. But what if that shared destination had been intentionally altered? If that were true, then the situation would become a complete disaster. Tori immediately asked what exactly changing the destination meant. Beard calmly added that depending on the scale, it could potentially cause something as catastrophic as a natural disaster. Tori became so shocked by what he heard that he accidentally staggered backward and crashed directly into several crates of medicine. He immediately panicked. He couldn't believe Beard casually said something so horrifying and startled him like that. The bottles inside the crates were all medicine. Tori desperately hoped none of them had broken. Meanwhile, Beard casually replied that it wasn't its fault. Then it calmly remarked that Mr. Adventurer's next opponent was apparently going to be a curse. Once again, Tori had somehow gotten himself involved in something incredibly troublesome. Back at the clinic, the patients had finally returned to their beds while Clegg had completely fallen asleep sitting upright in his chair. Tori quietly approached him and gently placed a blanket over his shoulders. After all, Clegg had spent the entire day non-stop producing mana recovery potions, so it was no surprise that he was completely exhausted. Then Alba quietly called out to her master. Tori immediately told her once again to stop calling him that, but Alba simply insisted that it was fine. She then asked whether Clegg had already fallen asleep. Tori replied that he was completely out cold. He quietly commented that even while his own mana was still being drained away, Clegg continued pushing himself that hard for everyone else. Tori still couldn't understand how a single bite from a Suforbat had managed to create such a horrifying situation. Alba suddenly apologized for what happened earlier in the forest. She admitted that she rushed in recklessly, without thinking things through properly. But Tori immediately told her that it was fine and that none of it was really her fault. Then he suddenly changed the topic. He asked Alba whether Suforbats were capable of changing the target they shared mana with. But Alba admitted that she didn't know the first thing about magic. Meanwhile, Tori himself barely understood anything beyond life magic. Still, Alba quietly wondered what exactly it meant to change the destination of mana sharing. Even Clegg admitted earlier that he still didn't fully understand the details yet. But regardless of the truth, Tori had already decided something. He wanted to save everyone there, including Clegg. But before we proceed with the recap, I think Clegg is a girl. What do you think, guys? Anyway, far away in the merchant city of Tatara, a man casually grabbed a bottle of medicine. The man wore a metallic eye mask over his eyes and possessed a mechanical arm. His name was Owen, one of the executives of the knife company. And right now, he looked completely bored. He casually walked into another building. Then he opened the door to a hidden room. Inside, countless Suforbats fluttered around the chamber. Owen casually remarked that the creatures had managed to absorb a lot of mana that day. But then he noticed something strange. The number of Suforbats had clearly decreased. At that moment, he suddenly called out to Diarmuid and asked whether something had happened. Owen walked through a curtain-covered doorway toward the voice. Behind it was a room resembling a laboratory, filled with jars containing strange monster parts and preserved specimens. At first, Owen thought Diarmuid wasn't there, but then suddenly, Diarmuid's voice spoke from directly behind him. Diarmuid was another executive of the Neve Company. Unlike Owen, he wore an eerie bird-shaped helmet over his face. He calmly asked Owen how things were going. Owen immediately complained and told him to stop sneaking up on people like that. According to Owen, Diarmuid always had absolutely zero presence. Then Owen asked how today's harvest looked. Nearby, an hourglass-like container filled with red liquid quietly sat on a table. Owen reported that the collection process was progressing smoothly. Diarmuid seemed pleased to hear that. Owen commented that the entire operation had been carefully planned by Diarmuid from the beginning. As he spoke, he casually grabbed a superbat out of the air. Then, he spread open one of its wings. A magic circle had been engraved onto the left wing. Through that enchantment, they were efficiently collecting mana from the victims. Diarmuid explained that the entire process only worked because of his enchantment magic. However, he also warned that if they failed to gather and process enough mana soon, then with the number of Suforbats decreasing, they might fail to meet the delivery deadline in time. Owen immediately asked why the Suforbat population was suddenly dropping so quickly. Diarmuid answered that the issue was currently under investigation, but according to him, something even more important was happening right now. They were finally coming up. Owen looked confused by what he meant. Then suddenly, a bird flew into the room and landed directly on Diarmuid's shoulder. Owen looked surprised by its arrival. Moments later, several men entered while carrying a massive cage filled with a swarm of bats. Diarmuid calmly entrusted the entire task to Owen. After all, Owen was the only person there capable of properly using enchantment magic. Owen immediately grumbled about having to pull another all-nighter again. Then he suddenly asked where the young miss currently was. Diarmuid answered immediately. According to him, she had become completely obsessed with the container lately. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in the forest, an orc roughly pulled the chains restraining several female elves. Suddenly, an elf wielding daggers appeared and instantly slashed the orc apart. In a single motion, she severed both its arm and head. The elf looked surprised afterward. She never expected the head of the merchant group to personally show up. Then suddenly, a magic circle appeared in the air. The restrained elves were instantly bound once more. At that moment, someone calmly explained that the head had simply eaten too much during lunch and wanted a bit of light exercise afterward. Nearby, a luxurious carriage stood waiting. Then a woman slowly stepped out from inside. Someone nearby worried that she was moving around without an escort. But another person simply found that concern amusing. After all, she already possessed an excellent escort team. In the blink of an eye, she instantly beheaded the elf who killed the orc. Back in the present, Owen quietly remembered exactly what kind of person she was. Meanwhile, Diarmuid calmly mentioned that the only thing she truly cared about from them was the development of magic circles necessary for future business ventures. The bird resting on Diarmuid's shoulder suddenly let out a squeak. That sound signaled that Lady Neve herself had returned. Owen casually commented that the bird behaved like an incredibly loyal dog. Immediately, both Owen and Diarmuid dropped to their knees. Lady Neve arrived while accompanied by 2 slave orcs. The 2 executives formally welcomed her back. This lady then thanked them for welcoming her. Then they asked whether she had suffered any injuries during her outing. Lady Neve coldly replied that the only issue was that her shoes had become dirty. Then she ordered them to buy her new shoes immediately. Diarmuid respectfully asked what kind of design she preferred, but Lady Neve simply told him to choose based on his own taste. Then her expression shifted slightly. She informed them that things were about to become busy. As she spoke, she pulled out a scroll. The moment Owen and Diarmuid saw it, both of them looked shocked. They immediately asked whether it was an official letter from the royal family of Leorga. Lady Neve confirmed that they were correct. Then she calmly ordered them to continue handling the container using the usual arrangements. Finally, she casually added that some trash had attached itself to the carriage earlier, so they should clean that up as well. Both Owen and Diarmuid immediately agreed to her orders. Lady Neve calmly stated that they had already reached the final stage of their plan, which meant they needed to go all out from this point onward. Then Diarmuid carefully brought up another matter. He explained that there was still one issue they wanted to resolve before proceeding further. Lady Neve immediately understood what he was referring to: the problem of the decreasing sufferbat population. Meanwhile, far away, one of Diarmuid's birds quietly landed on a tree branch. Its eyes remained locked onto Tori from the shadows. Back at the laboratory, Lady Neve calmly stated that she would leave the matter entirely to Diarmuid. He was free to handle it however he wanted. Then she casually sat on his shoulder. Diarmuid slowly stood up. It seemed that he already had a plan in mind. Tori remembered that Clegg told him to gather more Kara fruit. He thought that while searching, he could also use plow life magic to till the land around the back hill. But then suddenly, he noticed a bird nearby. At first he thought it might be another Suforbat. But after staring at it for a moment, he simply shrugged it off. The clouds overhead looked heavy anyway, so he figured it would probably rain tomorrow. Tori decided to get back to plowing. But just before he started, something suddenly caught his attention. A strange cloud-like distortion appeared in front of him. Tori wondered if it was some kind of explosion, but Beard immediately explained that it was actually teleportation magic, and according to Beard, teleportation magic was extremely rare. Tori had absolutely no idea what that meant. Then suddenly, someone stepped out from the distortion. Meanwhile, far away, Lady Neve quietly observed everything through a magic crystal. She calmly remarked that Tori was truly a pitiful boy. After all, he dared to interfere with the bats she treasured so dearly. Back at the scene, Diarmuid immediately realized that someone was observing him remotely. Meanwhile, Lady Neve admitted that she never expected a genius in magic circle development to end up being toyed with like this. Diarmuid calmly looked toward Tori and stated that Tori himself wasn't actually the person he was searching for. Tori immediately asked who he was. Then, in the blink of an eye, Tori was struck by something. He looked completely confused, and then his body instantly collapsed onto the ground. Diarmuid slowly approached him. He coldly called Tori weak. Just as he expected, the true prize was the boy capable of using compound magic. And according to his information, that boy's name was Clegg. Diarmuid quietly thought about how entertaining it might be to play with him a little. Then he calmly headed toward the clinic. But to his surprise, the door wouldn't open. The handle had been frozen solid. Ice crystals rapidly spread across the surface. Diarmuid quietly wondered if this was life magic. At that moment, Tori slowly stood back up. He was the one responsible for the ice. Tori admitted that he had no idea how this man knew Clegg's name. But regardless of the reason, Clegg had spent the entire day exhausting himself while making medicine for everyone. So Tori quietly asked him for one thing. Please let Clegg sleep peacefully tonight. Diarmuid looked genuinely confused, because he was certain that he had already shot Tori directly through the heart earlier. Tori confirmed that part was true, but Neil had protected him using the necklace he gave him. Tori immediately checked the crystal attached to it in panic and desperately hoped it was only cracked instead of broken. After all, it was something precious that he received from his brother. Diarmuid quietly realized that Tori somehow survived. He calmly commented that Tori was quite the lucky boy. Then, Beard suddenly warned Tori that Diarmuid was about to attack again. Beard informed him that the next shot was aimed directly at his head. The next instant, Diarmuid fired, but Tori somehow dodged it. For the first time, Diarmuid looked puzzled. Tori suddenly noticed something glowing near the man's waist. Beard immediately informed him that the stranger was carrying an extremely rare weapon. It was called a gun. Tori looked confused and immediately asked what that even was. Diarmuid reacted with slight surprise after hearing the word. Apparently, he didn't expect someone from a remote village like this to even know what a gun was. He explained that guns were incredibly rare weapons supplied directly by the royal family of Leorga. Compared to bows and arrows, they were easier to carry, possessed greater range, and their lethality was beyond question. Even weak women or children could use one effectively, simply by pulling the trigger. And most importantly, it was a masterpiece weapon that didn't require mana at all. That was why Diarmuid never expected anyone in this backwater village to recognize it. Then his tone suddenly changed. He quietly muttered that this was bad, very bad. Somewhere far away, someone asked if the situation was that serious. Another voice immediately answered that it was definitely serious, especially because Lady Neve was watching everything. Meanwhile, Diarmuid continued muttering to himself. Bad. Extremely bad. Critically bad. Tori stared at him in confusion. The guy honestly seemed completely unhinged, especially considering he immediately tried to kill someone the moment they learned too much. Tori still couldn't understand why this man was specifically targeting Clegg. Did they know each other somehow? Was there some kind of grudge between them? Then Tori suddenly realized something. He actually knew very little about Clegg himself. So he directly asked the stranger one question. What exactly was he to Clegg? The moment Diarmuid heard that, he decided that Tori needed to die immediately. Tori instantly activated Chill, but the ice shield he created shattered apart the moment Diarmuid fired at it. Diarmuid calmly commented that Tori was actually quite clever. Using the rainwater to instantly create layers of ice shields against bullets was genuinely smart. Tori quietly thanked his luck that it happened to be raining tonight. As long as rainwater existed nearby, he could continue generating as many ice shields as he wanted through Chill. Diarmuid then remarked that Tori's magical output was surprisingly impressive for someone using life magic. Then he casually wondered aloud whether Tori was the one responsible for destroying the Sephorbate swarm earlier. The moment Tori heard the word Sephorbate, everything suddenly clicked together in his mind. This man was the one behind the vampirism incident, and once he understood that, Tori decided there was absolutely no way he could forgive him. He immediately activated Kurisu Chill. The freezing magic burst outward instantly. Diarmuid looked amused by the overwhelming output of Tori's life magic. He admitted that he had never seen anything quite like it before. Still, life magic was supposedly basic magic that almost anyone could use, which meant that theoretically, he should also be capable of reproducing it. So Diarmuid activated Kurisu Chill himself, but the spell immediately dispersed and failed. Diarmuid quietly wondered whether the difference came from the mana output itself. At the same time, he remembered that ordinary life magic was never supposed to operate at this level to begin with. That realization immediately made him suspicious. Tori clearly possessed some kind of secret behind his magic. Before Diarmuid could think further, Tori unleashed another Kurisu Chill. Diarmuid instantly jumped backward to evade it. As he dodged, he noticed something strange. Tori wasn't using magic normally. He was externally drawing magic circles before activation. Diarmuid immediately became interested. He decided he wanted to take that technique for himself. Tori fired another Kurisu Chill. The magic circle appeared once again. Diarmuid calmly thanked Tori for conveniently drawing it out for him. Then he activated a new spell. Copy. Tori looked shocked. It almost looked as if Diarmuid absorbed the magic itself, and the sight completely dumbfounded him. Tori couldn't believe that his spell had simply vanished, or more accurately, the magic circle and the spell itself had both been sucked away. Then immediately afterward, Diarmuid activated Kurisu Chill. Tori looked shocked when his own spell came flying back at him. He immediately realized what happened. His magic hadn't disappeared. It had been copied and reflected back. At that moment, Tori finally understood what kind of magic Diarmuid possessed. Copy magic. And if Diarmuid could truly copy everything, then the situation was unbelievably dangerous. Tori instantly decided that he needed to lure this man away from Clegg and the others first. He quickly thought about leading him toward the mountain behind the village. Although, honestly, Tori wasn't even sure whether he could actually defeat him at all. Meanwhile, Diarmuid openly mocked him for trying to run away. He already understood that Tori was attempting to lure him elsewhere, but instead of stopping him, Diarmuid simply commented that Tori's magic circles were wonderful, and for now, he decided he would play along with the game. Tori ran as fast as he possibly could. Inside his head, he quietly apologized to Alba in advance. He already knew she would definitely scream at him for doing something reckless like this. While running, Tori activated Ignition. But of course, Diarmuid instantly copied that spell too. Tori looked horrified after seeing even that magic reproduced. And unlike Tori's version, Diarmuid's Ignition possessed absurd output. The surrounding heat immediately intensified. Diarmuid excitedly declared that this spell was wonderful too. Then he urged Tori to continue showing him more of his amazing magic circles. At that moment, Tori fully realized how hopelessly dangerous the situation had become. At least he successfully lured Diarmuid away from Clegg and the others. But now there was another terrifying problem. Any life magic he fired at Diarmuid would simply return right back at him, with even greater power than before. Tori suddenly thought of something. He immediately unlocked his storage. Then he pulled out Rockbird's magic crystal. Diarmuid noticed the crystal and casually commented that it was surprisingly large. He questioned why Tori was carrying around a raw magic stone when such stones normally needed to be processed before they could be used properly. Then he wondered what exactly Tori planned to do with an unprocessed crystal. Without answering, Tori activated Wing Beat magic. At the same time, he carefully watched Diarmuid's reaction. Diarmuid immediately found the situation interesting. Tori had somehow created magic directly from a raw crystal, and naturally, Diarmuid wanted that power too. So he immediately activated Copy. But the next moment, both Tori and Diarmuid looked shocked. The magic was deflected. For the first time, Diarmuid couldn't believe what had just happened. There was actually a magic circle that his ability couldn't copy. His eyes widened in genuine shock. Even Lady Neve, who was watching everything through the crystal ball, looked surprised. The two of them immediately identified what Tori truly was: a magic stone user. Meanwhile, Tori looked annoyed that Diarmuid kept copying every spell he used. But at least now, the fight finally felt somewhat fair. Meanwhile, Diarmuid quietly muttered to himself that he wanted it. Tori froze in confusion after hearing that. Then Diarmuid repeated himself again. He wanted it. Over and over. He wanted it. Then suddenly, Diarmuid activated Kurisu Chill. Tori looked shocked. Instead of firing the magic normally, Diarmuid used the ice itself as footholds to slip through the path of Wingbeat magic. Before Tori could react, Diarmuid suddenly grabbed his arm. Then he quietly declared that he wanted to devour everything. But at that exact moment, Alba's shield slammed directly into him. Alba suddenly burst into the battlefield and complained that she had been wondering why there was so much noise outside. Then she immediately asked whether her master was okay. Tori stared in shock. He never expected Alba and Clegg to follow him there. During the impact, Diarmuid's mask was knocked off. Everyone froze in surprise after seeing his face. It was the priest. Meanwhile, Diarmuid casually muttered in disappointment that his favorite mask had been ruined. Alba looked completely confused after seeing him. She genuinely wondered whether the two of them had just been doing some strange magic training together. Diarmuid coldly referred to her as a defective elf and warned her not to interfere. Then immediately, he activated Ignition. A massive burst of fire exploded toward Alba. Tori instantly panicked. He absolutely refused to let Diarmuid use his own magic against them, so he immediately rushed in front of Alba. Then, at the very last second, Tori activated Tilling. The moment the spell activated, a massive explosion erupted around them. After the smoke cleared, Diarmuid calmly told Tori that the two people he desperately tried to protect had probably been blown away by the blast. Then he quietly revealed something else. Originally, he only planned to obtain compound magic from Clegg, but discovering Tori's abilities instead had become an unexpectedly wonderful surprise. So now, he intended to let Tori continue living, not out of mercy, but because he planned to turn him into his personal research subject. Thick smoke scattered through the area. Then suddenly, from beneath the ground, Clegg pulled Alba out from the dirt. He asked if she was okay. Alba whined that she'd practically been buried alive. She even complained that her own master was the one who buried her. Clegg corrected her and said that wasn't what happened at all. Then he told her to carefully look around herself. Alba slowly remembered the massive flames rushing toward her earlier. Clegg explained that Tori protected both of them using life magic against the priest's abnormal attack. He suspected the spell Tori used was Tilling, a basic farming life magic normally meant for making ridges in soil. But Tori's version of life magic was clearly something completely abnormal. Then, suddenly, Alba cried out and asked where her master was. Clegg quietly answered that he didn't know. Alba guessed that maybe Tori was still trapped underground somewhere, but Clegg explained that he'd already dug through the entire area. Then, with a heavy expression, he quietly admitted that Tori had most likely been caught inside the flames. The moment she heard that, Alba ran off. She rushed toward the church while desperately searching for the priest. An old woman nearby gently asked little Alba whether she had business with Father, but Alba immediately demanded to know where the priest was hiding. She even threatened that she wouldn't forgive anyone who tried to protect him. Then Clegg suddenly stopped her. He calmly explained that there was no way the priest would ever return there after his face had already been exposed. Alba immediately panicked and shouted that the priest still had Tori. She couldn't understand why Clegg was remaining so calm about all of this. But then, she suddenly noticed Clegg's hands. They were completely bloodied. At that moment, Alba realized something. Clegg had been digging through the debris nonstop the entire time until he managed to pull her out. And the person Clegg truly wanted to save above anyone else was Tori. Alba quietly apologized and said that she was sorry he ended up saving her instead. But Clegg immediately told her not to say something so stupid. He explained that if Tori truly died inside the flames, then there should at least be ashes left behind. But there were none, which meant only one thing. Tori was still alive somewhere. Then Clegg turned toward one of the sisters and asked whether she knew where the priest originally came from. The sister informed them that the priest was actually from the neighboring town, which meant he most likely returned home already. Meanwhile, at the merchant city of Tatara, the streets remained lively and crowded with people. Alba and Clegg stood together on a bridge overlooking the city. Then, Alba suddenly pointed toward a particular building. She quietly stated that she suspected the bastard priest was hiding there. Clegg immediately asked whether she could actually see the traces of magic leading there, or if she was somehow smelling them instead. Alba explained that traces of magic were strange things. They could sometimes be seen with the eyes, sometimes linger like a scent, and sometimes remain behind as echoes within sound itself. After calming herself down and carefully examining the scorched battlefield, Alba discovered traces of magic leading all the way toward the town the sister mentioned earlier. She explained that it was an elf sense, so it was difficult to properly describe. Clegg immediately teased her for somehow being able to sense magical traces, despite not being able to use magic herself. Alba instantly became annoyed. She raised her voice and emphasized once again that it was a sense, not magic. And besides, that was exactly why she kept asking her master to teach her magic already. As they continued forward, Clegg noticed a crowd gathered nearby. Meanwhile, Alba informed him that the mana traces were leading directly toward the back entrance of a building. Two massive, muscular orcs guarded the entrance. Alba confidently declared that this was definitely the right place, but getting inside wouldn't be easy. However, since neither of them knew Tori's current condition, Clegg had absolutely no intention of wasting time waiting around. He immediately mixed Hasho bamboo, slime magic stone powder, and Dryad's lost seed together. The result was a hypnotic drug. According to Clegg, they simply needed to force the guards to drink it somehow. Alba immediately declared that she was actually pretty good at handling this sort of thing. Then she suddenly rushed straight toward the orcs. She immediately jumped onto one of their backs. Then she whispered for it to stay quiet. But almost immediately, she realized that the orc's neck was way thicker than she expected. The orc slammed backward into a wall and accidentally crushed her in the process. Clegg stared at her and immediately asked what exactly she thought she was doing. Then, while the orc was distracted, he forced the potion into its mouth. Immediately afterward, he kicked the orc directly in the chest. The huge body collapsed instantly. But the second orc immediately charged toward him. Alba quickly slammed her shield into its head while loudly cursing at it. Then she proudly declared that the entrance was officially open. Clegg immediately called her a complete musclehead and openly questioned whether brute force was literally the only thing inside her brain. But before Alba could argue back, Clegg suddenly noticed something. A chain. The moment he saw it, his expression changed. Alba noticed his reaction and immediately asked what was wrong, but Clegg simply told her to hurry. Meanwhile, deep inside, he quietly wondered what exactly that sinister presence he sensed earlier really was. Then he reminded Alba to continue following the traces, so Alba immediately led the way. But the moment the two of them reached the hidden room, both of them froze in shock. The Sephorbats instantly attacked them. Clegg immediately reacted and ordered Alba not to breathe in. Then he threw the hypnotic drug directly toward the swarm. One by one, the Sephorbats immediately dropped unconscious. Alba stared around the room in confusion and asked why the creatures were even being kept there. Then suddenly, she noticed several crates nearby. Inside them was the exact same medicine Ava had been taking. Alba immediately followed the mana traces again, and eventually, they led directly toward a massive hourglass-like container. She quietly wondered whether all the mana stored inside the bottles was somehow being gathered there together. Then her eyes widened in horror. The mana inside the hourglass was still flowing continuously. Several mana traces connected directly into it, and when Alba followed the other connections, she discovered they led straight toward the Sephorbats. Her entire body trembled after realizing the truth. Those strange bottles and the Sephorbats were directly connected. Mana from countless victims was being drained through the Sephorbats and funneled into the system. Alba called the entire thing disgusting. Meanwhile, Clegg stared at the magic circle engraved onto the Sephorbats' wing. Then he suddenly remembered something. The priest previously mentioned that the Neve Company was cooperating with the vampirism incident investigation. Clegg quickly formed a hypothesis. He explained that if the enchantment magic engraved into the magic circles was rewriting the Sephorbats' mana-sharing function, and if the altered mechanism redirected that shared mana into the bottles instead, then the Sephorbats were essentially absorbing mana from people and gathering it all there, which meant the entire system worked like this. First, they created victims by draining people's mana through the Sephorbats. Then, afterward, they manufactured recovery medicine using the exact same mana stolen from those victims. The moment Clegg realized that, his expression darkened. Their true objective was a pharmaceutical business built entirely around mana depletion victims who would never truly recover. At that moment, Alba also realized the horrifying truth. This place was the true source behind the vampirism incident, but suddenly, a blade pierced directly into Clegg's shoulder. At the same time, the door was forced open by a mechanical arm. The newcomer calmly stated that he heard the young Mrs. Dahl had fallen over, so he came to investigate. And instead, he found a pair of massive rats sneaking around. He casually admitted that the two of them were surprisingly intelligent, but at the same time, he commented that the way they broke into the facility was painfully amateurish. To him, it made it obvious that they weren't professionals in this kind of work. Clegg stared at the strange weapon in shock. He couldn't believe the man had actually created a weapon using his mechanical arm. Meanwhile, Alba looked completely confused and wondered what exactly this guy even was. The man casually introduced himself through his exhausted sigh. It was Owen, and according to him, the two of them were becoming an unbelievable pain to deal with. Owen immediately transformed his mechanical arm into another weapon. He complained again that the two rats were seriously becoming a pain to deal with. Since neither of them looked like they belonged in the same line of work, he questioned what exactly they were even doing there. Meanwhile, Clegg quietly wondered whether this man was some kind of alchemist. After all, he seemed capable of turning ordinary objects into weapons instantly. Alba immediately warned Clegg that this guy was strong. Owen then asked which one of them was responsible for putting the young lady's doll to sleep. In response, Clegg quietly pulled out several magic stone powders: poison peep, fly moth, and acid bee. The moment Owen saw the ingredients, he immediately realized the truth. This was definitely the compounderer Diremud mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, Clegg quietly asked Alba whether the mana traces ended inside this room. Alba carefully examined the surrounding flows of mana. Then she noticed something. The traces actually continued farther beyond the room. Alba informed him that another flow existed deeper inside the tower. She believed there was another hidden room farther ahead. Immediately, Clegg told her to follow the trail and locate the priest. He declared that Alba was the key to ending this entire incident, and with that, he entrusted everything to her. Owen noticed the two whispering to each other and casually asked whether they were forming some kind of plan. Then he calmly declared that he had no intention of letting either of them escape. But before he could move, Clegg suddenly threw several vials. An explosion instantly erupted throughout the room. Clegg immediately counterattacked using an explosive compound mixture. Owen looked shocked when he saw the company's merchandise, the super bats, flying loose everywhere. And worse, those particular bats hadn't even been enchanted yet. Meanwhile, Clegg quickly used a recovery potion on his injured shoulder. Owen looked genuinely surprised after witnessing that. Then he clicked his tongue in annoyance. No wonder Dayar Muad wanted this guy's abilities so badly. At the same time, Owen also looked irritated that the other rat managed to escape. Meanwhile, Clegg quietly inhaled deeply while observing Owen carefully. He could immediately tell the type of person Owen was. A man with both merchant and mercenary experience. Someone with immense pride in his own work, yet also carrying a strange emptiness deep inside. And according to Clegg's experience, people like that were especially vulnerable to one thing: anger. So Clegg smirked. Then he deliberately taunted Owen by asking whether he was really getting angry after being outplayed by a brat like him. The insult instantly worked. Owen immediately attacked. He warned Clegg not to underestimate working people, but Clegg casually mocked him again and pointed out that he completely missed. Then he added that Owen only possessed flashy techniques without any real skill behind them. Owen immediately replied that he wasn't an alchemist in the first place. Then he fired 3 blades directly toward Clegg. Immediately afterward, he enchanted the next set of spikes, causing them to gain a returning flight pattern like boomerangs. Clegg looked genuinely surprised after seeing that. Then Owen finally revealed what he truly was: an enchanter, a versatile mage capable of enchanting magic onto virtually anything. Owen revealed that his mechanical arms also incorporated alchemy into their construction. Because of that, he could instantly turn almost anything around him into a weapon with a single thought. Even ordinary objects like walls or doors were enough for him. Then he told Clegg to experience his craftsmanship personally with his own body. At the same time, Owen warned him not to overwork him too much. After all, thanks to this entire mess, Owen was already stuck working overtime. Then he attacked again. In response, Clegg immediately pulled out Hoshiodak, Mellow Scales, and Sealer Butterfly Scale Powder. Then he activated Compounding. The entire room quickly filled with thick smoke. Owen scoffed at the obvious smokescreen and declared that something like this wasn't nearly enough to hide from his eyes. Through the smoke, he spotted the silhouette of that annoying brat. Owen immediately touched the ground. Then a massive wooden arm burst upward from the floor and grabbed Clegg instantly. But instead of panicking, Clegg simply mocked him. He commented that Owen was overworking his eyes too much. Then he casually added that getting old really sounded rough. Owen instantly snapped and shouted that Clegg seriously never shut up. Then he repeated his earlier statement once again. He could enchant magic onto absolutely anything. That was how he became strong. And according to him, he would only continue becoming stronger from there. Clegg simply laughed at him. Then he suggested that maybe Owen should switch specialties from enchantment magic to bragging instead. According to Clegg, Owen honestly sounded exactly like some generic mob villain. Owen could only glare at him in irritation and mutter that he was seriously a pain to deal with. Then suddenly, Clegg started counting backward from 30. As the countdown continued, Owen eventually stopped him at 22 and asked why he was counting down in the first place. At first, Owen assumed the brat simply wanted some dramatic final moments before dying. Then, Owen found the idea amusing. He joked that Clegg was basically counting down toward the end of his work shift. And according to Owen, once the countdown reached 0, Clegg's life would end too. Meanwhile, Clegg calmly continued counting. When the number finally reached 12, Owen created an enormous hammer and enchanted it. The spell placed onto it was a guaranteed one-hit kill attack. Then Owen casually told the brat to say hello to God for him. Clegg continued counting. 3, 2, 1. Then right before the end, Clegg suddenly stuck out his tongue at him. The moment the countdown hit 0. The hammer slammed down directly onto Clegg. His body was completely crushed. Owen coldly remarked that this was exactly what happened to people who underestimated working adults. Then he immediately started complaining again. Now, he would have to gather all the bats again from scratch. The equipment he spent so much effort building was wrecked. The medicine supplies were wasted too. And worst of all, he already knew the boss wouldn't let this slide peacefully. Naturally, Owen blamed everything on that damn brat. But then suddenly, Clegg's crushed body dispersed into thin air. Owen froze in complete shock. He couldn't believe that the brat simply vanished. Then, he finally realized the truth. The countdown earlier was for the hallucination potion to wear off. At that exact moment, Clegg suddenly appeared behind him. He mocked Owen for being exactly the type of idiot who fell for plans so easily. Owen immediately spun around, but Clegg calmly told him to relax. There wouldn't be any overtime for him anymore. Then Clegg coldly declared that this company was going bankrupt tonight. Immediately afterward, he unleashed an explosive compound mixture directly at Owen. The explosion completely destroyed Owen's mechanical arms. Then Owen's body crashed violently into the surrounding crates. Clegg coldly stated that people who abused medicine despite calling themselves compounderers genuinely disgusted him. Then he gave Owen one final warning. Never underestimate him again, otherwise, he would personally strip away every last bit of their shallow little resolve. The explosion immediately caught the attention of the people outside. Several masked nobles accompanying Lady Neve questioned what was happening, since things were becoming incredibly loud outside. Meanwhile, Lady Neve simply muttered one word: idiot. Back inside the room, Clegg picked up Owen's destroyed mechanical arm in surprise. He immediately recognized it as a myoelectric prosthetic. Clegg commented that this kind of technology was completely different from the magic systems used by the great Western nations. He had only heard rumors about this kind of machinery before, but now that he was finally seeing it in person, even he had to admit it was insane technology. Meanwhile, Owen completely lost his temper. He demanded to know why Clegg was still alive when he was supposed to be dead already. Then he started screaming about how expensive his mechanical arm was. He even threatened Clegg and shouted at him to stop screwing around before he killed him for real. Clegg immediately shoved his hand over Owen's mouth to silence him. Then Clegg calmly revealed the truth. The drug he used earlier was a hallucination potion. Normally, it required 5 full minutes before taking effect, but in Owen's case, it activated much faster than expected. Then Clegg immediately began preparing another compound using Hashiodak, slime magic stone powder, and mellow scales. The moment Owen saw the ingredients, he instantly panicked. Clegg calmly informed him that this particular drug would erase his ability to resist mentally. It was essentially a truth serum. Then Clegg immediately began questioning him. He asked who Owen really was and what exactly the knife company was doing. Under the effects of the drug, Owen revealed his name and admitted that he handled weapon production for the knife company. Then Clegg directly asked whether Owen was involved in the vampirism incident. Owen answered yes without hesitation. Clegg continued pressing him and asked whose idea it was to create a pharmaceutical business centered around mana depletion patients. But Owen casually replied that the medical business itself was only a side effect. That answer immediately made Clegg even more suspicious. So Owen finally revealed the truth. Everything had been ordered by Lady Neve herself. According to Owen, the Neve company was secretly researching military applications involving monsters for a certain client. He was about to reveal even more information. But suddenly, Clegg sensed danger. Chains instantly appeared around Owen's neck, and in the next moment, his head was severed completely. Clegg immediately realized what just happened. Someone had silenced Owen before he could talk further. Then Clegg felt it again. That same unsettling presence from earlier. He could clearly sense mana nearby, but strangely he couldn't actually see where it was coming from. At that moment, Clegg fully realized how terrible the situation had become. If Owen's confession was true, then that meant Alba was in danger. Meanwhile, Alba leaped toward another floor inside the tower, but the moment she arrived, she found herself facing a dead end. Alba looked confused. The mana traces clearly indicated that a path should exist beyond the wall. So without hesitation, she slammed her shield directly into it and destroyed the wall completely. Immediately afterward, she sensed an overwhelming presence deeper inside. So she followed it. Eventually, Alba arrived at a dark room, and despite the darkness, she was absolutely certain the priest was inside. She immediately demanded to know what he had done to her master. Then suddenly, she saw Tori. Her eyes widened in shock. Tori's arms were chained above his head, and his entire body was covered in bruises. Alba immediately rushed toward him. She desperately asked whether he was okay. Then she grabbed the chains and tried pulling them apart, but the chains were unbelievably durable. So Alba immediately decided to loosen them by smashing them repeatedly with her shield instead. She warned Tori that it might hurt a little, but told him to endure it somehow. But the moment Alba struck the chains again, the chains suddenly began glowing. Alba looked confused about why they were still so unbelievably tough. Then she noticed the truth. Binding magic had been engraved into them. Magic that completely canceled out other forms of magic. And attached to the spell was the priest's mana signature, Tori immediately told Alba to get out of there. He warned her to look around carefully and run because she was being targeted too. Alba still didn't understand what he meant. Then, Tori suddenly fell silent. Confused, Alba slowly looked around the dark room, and finally noticed the other people imprisoned there. They were restrained exactly like Tori. Then Alba recognized them. They were elves, and not strangers either. Yuiri, Meruenu, Manhwa, and many others. Alba's face immediately turned pale as she asked why all of them were there. But suddenly, a loud sound echoed from above. The ceiling instantly caved in, and Clegg jumped down into the room. Alba immediately cried out after seeing him. Clegg looked terrible. She quickly asked what happened to him, but Clegg casually answered that he honestly had no idea himself anymore. Still, he could somehow continue moving. Then behind him, the headless corpse of Owen became visible. Alba stared at it and immediately commented that Clegg was unbelievably brutal. But Clegg clarified that he only destroyed Owen's prosthetic arm. Apparently, almost everything besides Owen's head had already been replaced with myoelectric machinery. Then Alba quickly informed Clegg that she found her master. But at the same time, all the missing elves were imprisoned there too. Clegg immediately looked shocked. Alba desperately asked what this place really was because it clearly wasn't just some ordinary merchant mansion anymore. Then Tori weakly called out to his strategist. Clegg heard him immediately, but instead of replying, Clegg simply endured it silently, because he already understood what Tori wanted to say. Then Clegg looked toward Alba and calmly told her that she did well. However, this situation was no longer just about rescuing Tori anymore. Then Clegg revealed the truth Owen confessed earlier. The pharmaceutical business connected to the vampirism incident was merely a side effect. The real objective was something far worse. The Neve company had been kidnapping elves and injecting them with massive amounts of mana taken from other monsters. Alba immediately understood the horrifying implication. If that much foreign mana entered someone's body, they would eventually lose their sense of self due to rejection. Clegg confirmed it. The purpose was to destroy their egos entirely and brainwash them afterward. Then, suddenly, the imprisoned elves violently began breaking free from their restraints. Clegg quickly explained what the Knive Company had truly been researching all along. They were attempting to create ultimate soldiers overflowing with overwhelming amounts of mana. Alba looked horrified. Clegg immediately warned her that the situation had become extremely dangerous. Then suddenly, a calm voice echoed through the room. Someone casually asked whether it was already time for inspection. Both Alba and Clegg instantly became alarmed. Then a young woman slowly entered the room. After noticing how freely the intruders were talking, she quietly observed them. Tori immediately shouted for Alba and Clegg to run away. Then he revealed the truth. This woman was the one controlling everything? Alba immediately argued that she was only a child, but Clegg quietly revealed that the terrifying mana presence he sensed earlier was coming directly from her. The young woman calmly greeted her unexpected guests. Then she introduced herself. She was the president of the Neve company. Her name was Neve. Neve made her move. Her magic circles glowed, and the chains connected to the elves lit up as well. She declared that the inspection would begin. Then the elves charged forward. Clegg couldn't believe she was controlling 2 spells at once. Alba was furious that this girl was doing something like that to her friends. She rushed in while screaming that she would never forgive her. But one of the elves fired a blast of golden light at her. It was blinding. And before Alba could fully open her eyes again, a male elf attacked her from the side. Clegg quickly used a hallucination potion on him, but the attack still landed on Alba. Tori immediately got worried for her. Clegg was shocked that the hallucination potion hadn't worked. Then, suddenly, a massive blade pierced through his back. Tori panicked for him. She revealed that hallucinations do not work on soldiers who have no will of their own. Dire Muid wanted Clegg's power, but she had no need for it. As Clegg slowly lost consciousness, he remembered someone once telling him that he had to survive no matter what. 10 years earlier. In that memory, young Clegg excitedly showed Kian what he was making, saying that their father had finally taught him. He proudly mixed ingredients like moth powder and ashmua grass stem. Then he used compounding, and it immediately exploded. A man combined Dryad's lost seed, fly moth powder, and ashmua grass stem together, successfully creating a compound. The mixture glowed brilliantly, leaving the boys completely amazed, and Clegg proudly declared that his father was the best compounder in the world. Their father gently scolded the 2 little researchers. Then he reminded Clegg that a healer who neglects his own body should never exist. He told him that his own life was just as precious as everyone else's. Clegg apologized. Then their mother noticed the mess. She got angry because she would be the one cleaning it up. She asked what exactly they were doing with their father, Their father immediately apologized in panic. Later on, Clegg's father brought him into the forest. They were hunting a horned rabbit. His father trained him to read the terrain, choose the best place to fight, and think about where to lure the enemy. As Clegg struggled, his father kept pushing him to think about the opponent's weakness, his own strengths, and what he should do in that moment. Then Clegg realized what he could do. He quickly combined several ingredients at once. He triggered a compound and activated an Axel mix as he rushed into action. And he successfully caught the single-horned rabbit, but the rabbit kicked him hard, forcing him to let go. Clegg immediately whined that it hurt. His father laughed and praised how much his combat sense and compounding precision had improved, saying that all he lacked now was close-quarters combat skill. When Clegg asked how he became so strong, his father simply answered that he just kept surviving. Clegg questioned that answer because in his mind, if someone was strong, surviving should already be obvious. But his father explained that healers were the cornerstone of every adventurer party. If the healers fell first, nobody could treat the adventurers anymore, and the entire team would lose its fighting power. That was why he fought so desperately to survive, no matter what it took, and he told Clegg that he must survive too, no matter what. Back in the present, Clegg cursed himself for suddenly remembering the words of that annoying old man. He reached for the same ingredients again: Dryad's lost seed, fly moth powder, and ashmua grass stem. Then he used compounding to create a recovery potion, and immediately used it on himself. His wounds began healing. Neve was shocked to see his injuries rapidly closing up. Clegg called out to Tori and Alba. Then he threw potions toward them. The two were stunned. He told them to keep thinking about the enemy's weaknesses and their own strengths. He swore that he would heal them as many times as necessary, because there was no way he was going to lose to people like them. But the two were still acting like crybabies. Alba complained that she couldn't think properly in this situation. Meanwhile, Tori pointed out that he still couldn't remove the chains. Clegg was already getting annoyed. But then Tori remembered that Clegg could heal even fatal wounds. And an idea suddenly popped into his head. He confirmed whether Clegg truly meant what he said earlier about healing them as many times as it took. Then Tori screamed at the top of his lungs as he poured all of his strength into the bindings. Everyone stared at him, and he actually managed to break free. But both of his arms were left broken and bleeding badly. Tori instantly complained that it hurt like hell. He called out to Clegg, who already knew exactly what he wanted. Clegg called him a complete musclehead. Then he healed him. Now that his arms were fully restored, Tori pulled out the Eats Planda magic crystal. Then he activated vine magic to restrain the elves. He grinned proudly and declared that he was back. But Clegg suddenly had a terrifying look on his face as he scolded Tori, saying that he was not back at all. He yelled that breaking free like that was completely ridiculous. And Tori was definitely getting a lecture later. Tori argued that it couldn't be helped since that was the only idea he could come up with. Nive finally understood what they were trying to do. Then Owen's headless mechanical body suddenly released several blades and forcefully broke free from the vines. Everyone was stunned by the sight. The body began spinning wildly while blades protruded from every direction. Tori immediately asked what the hell that thing even was. At that moment, Alba told her master that she would handle the elves herself, but Clegg warned her not to push herself and told her to leave it to him and Tori instead. Alba refused immediately. She declared that she would deal with her own kind herself, saying that it was her duty as the second child of the ruler of the Alanzia Empire. Clegg froze in shock after hearing that. Tori asked if he had ever heard of it before. Clegg answered that he had only heard rumors about it from adventurers. The Alanzia Empire was said to be a legendary nation where elves were allowed to live freely and where eternal happiness supposedly existed. Tori slowly realized what that meant. Alba was basically a princess from that place. Once Neve found out, she smiled and said that dominating someone like Alba would be very interesting. Alba immediately dared her to try it. Then she declared that she would be the one to bring Neve down herself. Neve admitted that she never thought the Alanzia Empire actually existed, and the monolith person Dirmu had found was secretly a princess all along. She said she found that strangely romantic. Then she wondered if the princess's wish would truly come true. Meanwhile, Tori shouted, asking where the priest had run off to. He complained that he was only half healed before the priest suddenly disappeared. Then he demanded that Alba call him back immediately, but Clegg quickly said that bringing him back would only cause them even more trouble. Alba calmly answered that the child was a good boy since he had even made custom shoes for her. She added that he was probably out looking for new clothes for her as well. Tori found that incredibly weird. At that moment, Alba threw her shield while screaming at them to stop messing around. One of the elves countered with light bullet. Alba's attack was easily negated. Then the other elves prepared the exact same attack. A massive explosion erupted. Alba immediately got worried because the attack had been aimed directly at Tori, but Tori told her not to worry. He used the Basilic's magic crystal and activated steel magic. He assured her that he was completely fine. And since they had Clegg's recovery potions, they could continue fighting at full power. Clegg immediately warned those muscle-brained idiots not to get used to relying on recovery potions every time they fought. Just then, the spinning mechanical body covered in blades rushed toward them. Clegg declared that he would handle it himself. Suddenly, Beard started laughing. He found Tori's absurd fighting style as entertaining as ever. Tori was shocked to hear his voice again. While dodging the attacks, he quietly muttered that he was pretty busy right now. Then he pointed out that Beard never showed up earlier when Diarmuid was crushing him. Beard completely ignored that complaint. Instead, he said that the young lady's story about the Alanzia Empire was fascinating, and he was also curious about that mechanical doll. Meanwhile, Clegg warned Tori that if he got shredded into pieces, recovery potions would not save him anymore. Tori unlocked storage and pulled out the Eats Planned a Magic crystal. Then he activated Vine Magic while Clegg prepared an explosive mix. The vines tightly restrained the mechanical body, and Clegg immediately blew it apart. One of the shattered fragments flew directly toward Neve. She deflected it with her fan, but the edge of the fan was sliced apart in the process. That slight disruption loosened her control over the elves. She immediately noticed it and snapped her fingers. Tori stared in shock when he realized the mechanical doll was still moving. Then Beard reminded Mr. Adventurer of something. Tori asked what he meant. Beard explained that magic was shaped entirely by imagination, and magic circles were simply tools used to give form to that imagination. He pointed out that Tori was already using life magic in the same way, but then he asked him to think about what would happen if the magic failed to activate at all. Tori suddenly remembered that when Diarmu had used that strange magic earlier, nothing else had appeared afterward, and if the tool itself was destroyed, the magic output would disappear as well. Tori immediately shouted to Clegg and Alba that there had to be a magic circle somewhere nearby, and if they destroyed it, both the elves and the mechanical doll would stop moving. Everyone froze in shock, even Neve. Clegg knew that woman had to be controlling everything somehow, but he had no idea which one among them was the real controller. Beard answered that he could only sense its presence. Tori got annoyed because he still could not see it, and he could not sense it either. But then Clegg sensed something. He immediately told Alba to trace the flow of mana back to the woman. Then he ordered her to signal him the moment she found the magic circle. He promised that he would create an opening for her. Alba focused carefully and searched for the magic circle. At first, she wondered if it was hidden in the headdress, but she quickly doubted it after noticing the light wrapped around Neve's body. Desperate to save everyone, Alba kept searching. She looked toward the elves and realized the answer might be where the mana connections were linked together. She carefully traced the flow of mana to its endpoint, the place where everything had been woven together, and every single trail led back to the woman. More specifically, her fan. Alba immediately shouted that she had found it. Clegg praised her instantly. Then he pulled out several vials and created a swirling flame. Golden smoke rapidly spread throughout the entire room. Neve realized it was a smokescreen, but inside that smoke, nobody would be able to tell friend from foe anymore. Or at least, that was what she thought. Suddenly, a shield slammed directly into her fan. Alba answered that she could still see her perfectly through the trace of her mana. Neve was completely caught off guard. Then Alba struck her again. The ornament in Nive's hair containing a flight magic circle shattered apart. Beard immediately realized what kind of magic she was using. It was copy magic. The magic circles allowed her to store copied spells. Then she could freely select and release them whenever she wanted. And now that they understood the trick behind it, they could finally counter it. Beard already knew that Tori's side would win. Neve was struck by the shield once more and crashed hard onto the ground. At the same time, the elves collapsed as well. Tori, who had been only inches away from the spinning blade of the mechanical doll, froze in shock before letting out a relieved sigh when it finally stopped moving. Neve's body began trembling violently. Alba coldly declared that only cowards looked down on others from above, and she refused to lose to someone like that. Neve glared at her in annoyance, but then her attention suddenly shifted when she saw her own reflection on Alba's shield. The moment she noticed the blood on herself, she panicked. She repeatedly screamed, "Wait!" while desperately staring at her reflection. Her sudden outburst startled Alba. Neve screamed that she did not want to die. Then Alba noticed something strange happening to her body. Tori immediately asked what was going on. Beard realized that this was not caused by a magic circle at all. This was a rare case. It was the woman's original magic. Then the woman frantically screamed, calling out, "Neve, my precious child!" Beard explained that she was a user of transformation magic. Apparently, Neve had spent her entire life being sold from the moment she first became aware of the world. From the facility to a house she did not recognize. Then from that house to a merchant company. To everyone around her, she was nothing more than merchandise. That was the only value her life had. The more she worked, the more the adults praised her. But as she grew older, even those praises disappeared. Her body remained weak and frail even after she became an adult. She once said there had even been a time in her childhood when she could not properly learn anything at all. She had never been given something she could truly rely on. It was around that time that her transformation magic awakened. Ironically, it was the very power she had always wanted most, yet back then she had absolutely no use for it. She transformed herself from a child into a grown woman. But she was frustrated. Frustrated with who she was. Frustrated with her own helpless life. Young and reckless, she let that frustration consume her. One day, she pinned a man beneath her, and the result of that moment changed everything. After that, nobody sold her anymore. Instead, she sold herself away, with her own will. That was when she finally realized something. She was no longer merchandise. As time passed, her stomach slowly swelled, and every movement brought pain. But the pain of giving birth was far greater than anything she had ever experienced. 2 women helped her through the delivery. Then they gently placed the baby into her arms, and the precious child smiled at her. At that exact moment, the baby became her reason for living. She named the child Neve, her precious light, her entire world. She had never believed happiness like that could ever exist for someone like her. One day, Neve cheerfully told her that she was heading out to make a delivery, and she reminded her mother to take care of herself while she was gone. This woman truly believed happiness had finally entered her life, but that happiness shattered the day a carriage struck Neve and killed her. From that moment onward, she regretted ever believing in happiness at all. She regretted not dressing her daughter in cuter clothes. She regretted not buying her prettier shoes. She regretted not telling her more often how much she loved her, and how Neve had always been her favorite person in the world. She screamed for them to give her child back. She cried out for her precious light. She declared that she would give up absolutely everything just to have her back again. She prayed for happiness to return to Neve, and eventually, she decided to devote everything she had to creating a perfect world for her daughter. A world where Neve could obtain eternal happiness. Then she declared that if the Alanzia Empire truly did not exist, then the people before her were the ones who had destroyed her reason for living. She blamed them for standing in the way of her daughter's happiness, and she swore that she would never forgive them. Suddenly, a bird flew into the room, and she noticed that it dropped an hourglass filled with purple liquid. Tori asked what exactly it was. Clegg explained that it was a mass of magic created by gathering mana using Sufor bats. Everyone reacted in shock at the overwhelming amount of mana inside it. Then the woman's chest suddenly began glowing brightly. A magic circle appeared at the center of her chest. At that moment, she remembered Diarmuid, and she realized that the final inspection ordered by the Liorga royal family had still not been completed. She grabbed the hourglass, then drank the purple liquid inside it. Alba immediately screamed for her to stop, warning that it was a mass of magical resentment. Suddenly, massive pillars of ice formed around them. Tori was shocked when he recognized the spell. It was chill. Then chains rapidly spread throughout the area. Tori asked what kind of magic this was now. Beard answered that this was another rare case. This time, it was servitude magic. He explained that it was the true nature of the enchantment carved into her chest. A contract magic circle designed to force monsters into submission. To Beard, the magic felt strangely nostalgic. It was a type of magic one of his old acquaintances specialized in. But because it consumed an absurd amount of mana, it eventually became a lost magic that nobody else could use anymore. Then Beard advised them to abandon the mansion immediately. He warned that with this much servitude magic being activated, the entire building would collapse and bury everyone alive. Tori immediately shouted for Alba and Clegg to escape because the whole mansion was about to come down. But Alba refused. She said they could not leave everyone behind while they were still unconscious. Clegg answered that their minds had already been broken, and even his medicine could not heal damage like that. Tori wondered if life magic could somehow restore their consciousness. Then, Beard reminded him that he still had the Suforbat magic crystal, the same one that made flowers bloom earlier. Tori suddenly realized that synchronization might actually work. He wondered if it was possible to connect directly with the elves. Beard informed him that it was not an especially dangerous gamble, but if he truly planned to do it, then he needed to hurry. Tori got annoyed because Beard was still being vague as usual, but there was no time left to hesitate. He unlocked storage and pulled out the Suforbat's magic crystal. Then he activated synchronization and instantly got a nosebleed. The elves suddenly woke up. Alba was overjoyed to see them conscious again, but Tori was in terrible pain. The elves' memories were flooding directly into his mind. It was an enormous risk. He felt like his head was being split apart from the inside. Tori told everyone to forget about him and just run away already. Alba immediately called for Clegg to treat him. Then she declared that she would carry Tori herself while everyone escaped outside. Moments later, the Knive Company mansion began collapsing behind them. And then a monster appeared. Beard immediately sensed a familiar presence and identified the creature as a wyvern. Knive's mother declared that she would never forgive them because they were enemies of Knive's happiness. Alba asked if she truly did not care about the damage this would cause to the city as well. Meanwhile, Clegg asked what exactly they were supposed to do against something like that. Tori was already in horrible condition, but he still trusted that Beard could handle a monster using those mysterious steps he talked about before. Beard confirmed that he could. Tori asked what the first step was. Beard answered that he was ready to do this with him. Their goal was to obtain the wyvern's magic crystal, and step 1 was to court it. Tori was dumbfounded. He wondered why he had to court that thing. Even Alba and Clegg looked confused. Alba grabbed him by the collar and shouted that it was the enemy. Tori explained that Beard told him to court it. Clegg blinked in confusion and asked who Beard even was. Tori suddenly realized he had zoned out and forgotten to hide Beard. Clegg admitted he already knew Tori was hiding something, but he would not force him to explain until he was ready. Still, if this courting idea could fix the situation, then they had no choice but to try it. He told Tori to do whatever he wanted, but in return, he had to take responsibility for this mess no matter what happened. Tori answered yes without hesitation. Alba panicked when he suddenly ran off. Clegg stopped her and reminded her that their job was to save the townspeople. She shouted that their master was about to court a monster. Clegg sighed and said that whenever Tori started muttering to himself, it usually meant he had already made up his mind about something. He told her to trust him. Tori unlocked his storage and pulled out the Suforbat's magic crystal. Then he activated synchronization magic. Instantly, Neve's memories flooded into his head. Neve kept muttering to herself. She screamed at someone for stepping around with filthy shoes. The wyvern suddenly breathed fire at them. Both of them coughed up blood. Clegg grew worried for Tori, but Tori assured him that something like that was not enough to bring him down. Still, everyone realized the burden of synchronizing with Neve had fallen directly onto him. Tori asked Beard if Knive's servitude magic consumed an absurd amount of mana. Beard answered that even with mana recovery drugs, it still would not be enough. At this rate, even if nothing attacked her, she would eventually die from mana depletion alone. That bothered Tori. Beard then pointed his attention back toward the wyvern. Apparently, Tori thought monster courtship worked the same way it did for humans. Beard could only sigh and tell him he seriously needed to study monsters more. He explained that wyverns preserved their species by mating with creatures that possessed massive amounts of mana. Neve's servitude magic most likely abused that instinct. And there was one more important detail. Whenever a wyvern sensed overwhelming mana, it would reveal its Imperial Wrath scale as part of its courtship behavior. Tori asked what Imperial Wrath even was. Beard explained that it was considered one of the weak points of dragon species, and wyverns exposed it even more openly than true dragons. Tori immediately understood what he needed to do. He had to make his mana appear greater than Neve's. The problem was figuring out how. But Beard calmly told him the answer already existed inside him. He advised Tori to remember everything he had learned from him and every step he had taken until now. That was when Tori realized Beard was talking about mana synthesis. He wondered if it was possible to do the same thing using magic stones. But one thing was certain. If he failed here, there was no way he could lure the wyvern away from Neve. Then he shouted for Clegg to give him an explosive mix. Clegg warned that even if he used that, it would not work on the wyvern. Tori said he already knew. He told Clegg to buy him a little time because they needed to stall first. Everyone protested because the wyvern was already flooding the area with flames and everyone's mana was nearly exhausted. But the other elves said they could still manage, because elves never forget their debts. Alba agreed with them. The elves formed whips of light while Clegg threw his dissolve mix at the wyvern. The attack continued non-stop. Tori was determined to stop this no matter what. He activated Storage Unlock. Then he released Eats Planda's magic crystal and Rockbird's magic crystal. He planned to fuse all of them into one. Neve noticed him and wondered what that brat was planning this time. Because she got distracted, Alba's shield nearly slammed into her. Alba shouted that Neve had dragged the elves into this mess and already destroyed enough of the town. But Neve screamed back at her to shut up because she understood nothing. She said she only wanted to change the world that stole Nive away and create one where Nive could finally live happily. Suddenly, the wyvern unleashed another blast of fire. It burned through a carriage, causing one of the wheels to fly loose. A little girl was directly in its path. The sight instantly reminded Neve of the accident. She saw her own daughter in that little girl. Without thinking, she rushed forward to catch the wheel. At that moment, Tori finally finished his work. He rushed in and grabbed the girl while using the new magic crystal to deflect the wyvern's claw. Alba and Clegg froze in shock when they saw him, especially after noticing the completely new magic crystal in his hand. Neve was stunned too. She looked around at the ruined city. All she wanted was to save her little girl. She wanted her daughter to live. But the roads they walked together and the plaza where she used to play had already been reduced to rubble. And no matter what she did now, her daughter would never come back. That was when Neve realized it. Her entire life had become nothing but a chain of mistakes. Tears streamed down her face as she wondered what she should have done differently. Tori noticed her. He gritted his teeth and held back his tears. He could not cry for her because if he did, Alba and the others would not survive this. Beard informed him that the servitude magic was fading. Tori answered that he already knew. Then he gently told the little girl to stay back because it was dangerous. At that moment, he thought about his brother, Neil. If Neil had died instead, maybe he would have cursed the world the same way Neve did. Still, Tori knew she had forgotten something important. He activated the first step of his own version of courtship. The Neve he saw in those memories had always smiled so brightly. Tori screamed at her to take everything he had. The woman suddenly remembered something. Her daughter had smiled until the very end. Knowing that filled her with relief. A massive beam of light erupted from the wyvern. Then Neve collapsed. Tori caught her before she hit the ground. He promised that later he would listen to her story properly. But for now, it was time for step 2. Beard instructed him to peel off the Imperial Wrath Scale. The servitude magic was gone, the Imperial Wrath Scale was fully exposed, and now the real fight was about to begin. Beard asked if he was ready, and Tori answered yes. No matter how impossible it seemed, he declared that he would connect everything. Alright, that's it for today's story. If you want the weekly chapter updates for this series, those will now be uploaded on my second channel, Manhwa Updater. So if you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure to check it out and join the update gang. Thanks for watching, stay cool, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.